the feed back here. And later we'll have this streamed on the different TV stations today. But just to make sure that we are in the right hands, this happens to be the 12th Indigenous and Traditional Food and Seed Fair. So today we are exhibiting a lot and we are having conversations directed to that agenda. And to start off, we're going to have a word. These are opening remarks, rather welcoming remarks that are going to come from the country coordinator of PELUM Uganda. That is Mrs. Luyimbazi Akia Josephine to address us, and thereafter we shall proceed. Let me welcome Mrs. Luyimbazi to address us. The ones who are here, we clap for her, she's coming. It's a good morning, we have already started.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I feel you're very far away. Is it possible for us to occupy the front seats so that the latecomers can sit behind? And as we do that, I'm requesting for a volunteer among the farmers to come and give us a word of opening prayer. I need a farmer. Thank you, youth farmer.
Good morning. I'm Bukenya Ivan from Bethany Land Institute. Thank you for the opportunity. Let us pray. Dear Lord, we want to thank you for the gift of life you have given to us. We want to thank you for all the capabilities you have enabled us to achieve. We are here because of you. Just come and lead us through this session and give us knowledge and wisdom. Let us not remain the same for better Uganda and the world at large. Thank you, Jesus.
Thank you so much for committing us in the hands of the Lord today. Mine is to give welcome remarks and just to remind ourselves why we are here. And I know there are some of us who have joined us today. I'll also just give you a bit of insight into the Agroecology Week of Action, because today is the final day or the climax event.
Recording in progress.
Agroecological Week of Action. But before I do that, I'd like to appreciate and recognize the presence of our representatives from the Ministry of Agriculture. We have the Assistant Commissioner, Mr. Kiror. Kindly stand up for recognition. Thank you so much for honoring our invite. I also saw our colleagues from the Plant Genetic Resource Center. Thank you so much, Dr. and your team. We also have our country board represented. We have a country board chairperson, Dr. Christopher, and Mr. Alan. Thank you so much. We also have academia. I saw representatives from academia. Thank you. I'm not seeing Dr. Sekandi. Yes, from Kabbalah University. Thank you so much for honoring our invite. We also have our member organizations and the affiliate farmers. I'm seeing Tedo is what is cladded most. Thank you so much for coming and being with us. We also have media, amidst us. We have international partners, most of whom are online, and development partners. Today we are celebrating our 12th annual Indigenous Food and Seed Fair. But before that, we had a series of events. We started with the YALTA regional summit, where we had a number of participants coming in from Kenya, Ethiopia, Rwanda and Uganda, commemorating the implementation of a 3-year youth agroecological-led intervention, where we're celebrating our successes, looking at our lessons learned, and seeing how we can scale up the interventions, especially those that are replicable. We also had our very first agroecological market systems expo, where we're trying to bring in the economic sense into agroecological interventions. Yesterday, we came together as the National Agroecological Actors Symposium, where we also had a representation of over 13 stakeholders within the agroecological sector, trying to look at the barriers that are limiting us to scale up agroecology, but also had a bit of snapshot into the national agroecology strategy. And today we are here to celebrate our indigenous heritage, our food, our seeds, especially those that are nearing extinction, and the neglected and underutilized species. So that is why we are basically here. And as I begin, there's an African proverb, because we also be looking at the launch of My Food is African. And I don't want to preempt the discussions that will be coming into that, and we are doing this in close collaboration with one of our funding partners, the Alliance for Food Sovereignty in Africa, that is also represented. There's a donor table somewhere there. Oxfam. So we're very grateful for all the support in ensuring that this is a success. And the African proverb says, judge each day not by the harvest, but by the seed you planted. And if you look at the seed, then another person will tell you, or the agroecologist in me will tell you, before you look at the seed that you planted, you also have to be very conscious of how you're feeding the soil. Because if the soil is not fed, you're sure you will not get any harvest out of that. So as PELUM Uganda, under the theme of today's event, which is basically looking at indigenous and traditional food systems, building resilience in nutrition, it didn't come from nowhere, but we're trying to see how do we also contribute towards the African-led declaration of 2022 as the whole year that is meant to be looking at building resilience in nutrition across the African continent. We know that there's a lot that we're doing as PELUM Uganda, but we needed to align. And because of our role as civil society organizations, we believe that there are contributions that we are making, however little they are. And if all of us do the little things, then we shall be able to harvest a lot. And as PELUM, you mandated us as our member organizations to foster the growth and promote ecological land use management. And we're doing this through promoting and upscaling agroecology. And within that, we are so passionate about our indigenous heritage, about our indigenous food and seed systems. And that's why we go ahead to commemorate this day each year, for us to be able to take stock and see what milestones are we making. In terms of what exactly have we been able to do when it comes to this very intervention, as I speak, with the intervention of Oxfam, that has really supported us on the Right to Food project, and even now sowing diversity is equal to harvesting security, we've been able to establish a number of community seed banks. We so far have over 10 seed banks stretched around Uganda, and we do this with the experts because we know that Naro has a whole plant genetic resource center that is mandated to make sure that all the genes, all the seed varieties are conserved, so that when that time comes, we are able to fall back. And they take us through the right way we are supposed to do this. How are we supposed to participatory and enhance and select those seeds that we think can be kept for generations? And there's a lot of work that we're doing according to that. We also have interventions and believe and subscribe to our very own community managed seed security model, This was developed in consultation with the member organizations and the farmers, because we know amongst the farmers, youth, women, the elderly, the disabled, there's a lot of wisdom in that space, and we try to tap into it. Then that way we can comfortably say every intervention we're doing is in a participatory way. In regards to policy, because everything that we do has a policy inclination, we've been able to work on a number of policy processes, also specifically looking at seed and our indigenous food. And PELUM was privileged to be selected and sat on the technical working group that developed the national seed policy. We also closely working with the Plant Genetic Resource Center on the development of the genetic resources for food and agriculture policy. We are also very passionate on working on the GMO campaign, knowing what our neighbors in Kenya have already done. We fear, but we are confident that we shall still be able to move this agenda forward and ensure that our organic foods, our agroecological foods, are not contaminated in any way, because we have a niche market and we stand to lose out if this is done also in Uganda. So today we are here to take stock and look at all those indigenous varieties and the seeds that are exhibited outside in the tent. How do these really contribute to nutrition? Are they nutritious? Because we always front this. Our foods are indigenous, and for that reason, they are nutritious, which is very true in terms of their taste. How are they helping us address the question of malnutrition, but also addressing food security? So we are here to take stock of that and together see how can we still continue conserving this indigenous heritage. I'm wishing you all the best today in terms of deliberations, and I sincerely hope that all the answers that you'll be having, all the depth of knowledge that you have will be shared with us, so that next year we still come back and share and see how much progress we have made. Thank you so much, and wishing you a very nice day.
Thank you so much, Josephine. I really want to thank the rundown that we've been through the week. It was very detailed. To those who just came today, that's how long the week has been. Allow me to welcome our board chair of PELUM Uganda, Dr. Christopher Cheswa, to equally come and give us the opening remarks. Josephine's remarks were welcoming remarks, just to give you a little bit of a preamble of what happened the whole week. Now the board chair will give us the opening remarks, and then we shall begin.
Yeah, thank you so much, Andrew. Our chief guest in absentia, all our invited guests, farmers. You are most welcome, you are most valued in this forum today. Representatives from the ministries, departments, and agencies of government, members from the academia, the media, our international partners and funders, member organizations of PELUM, all of you, ladies and gentlemen, attending here physically and those who are with us virtually, ladies and gentlemen. We are all perhaps aware of the supply disruptions that have happened globally because of first COVID-19 pandemic, and now we have the war in Ukraine. We do have the effects of climate change and climate variability, to the extent that some of the African countries, especially Ethiopia, Somalia, and Kenya, are bordering towards looming famine. Even in our own country, Uganda, we all know what has happened in Karamoja. If we haven't, we better check out such information. The world is going hungry. Yesterday we heard that it's because we have allowed monopoly to exist. We have certain countries that are supplying some food, and others are supplying fertilizers, others are consumers of what is produced. It's against this background that PELUM is intentioned, it is deliberate, that we promote and also create awareness about the role of our indigenous food and seed systems. We have surrendered a lot to the industrial agriculture proponents to the extent that now we are losing out because our biodiversity is decreasing, but also our soil fertility is going, yet our population is growing. Secondly, our indigenous food and seed is our heritage. It is something we are supposed to hand over to the next generation. If we don't put our efforts together like we are doing today, we are going to lose this nutritious food, which is easy to produce and which has for generations supported us in terms of food security, nutrition security, and also livelihoods. The theme for this annual indigenous, for the 12th annual Indigenous Food and Seed Fair is Indigenous and Traditional Food Systems, Building Resilience in Nutrition. I'm informed that according to the findings of the Continental Accountability Scorecard, which was launched by the African Union, at African Leaders Nutrition in 2019, the African continent has 8 million children under the age of 5 who are stunted, and 58.7 million of those stunted are in Africa. And as we all appreciate and know, Uganda is in Africa. Once children between 0 and 5 get stunted, then the nation will get stunted as a whole, because that's the generation we are looking up to define the future of this country sooner than later. As PELUM, in our development strategy, 5-year strategy, promoting indigenous food and seed systems is really ingrained in there. We cannot do this alone, as you all appreciate. And therefore, we are intentional in building partnerships, both locally and internationally, to be able to promote this heritage and to conserve this heritage of ours. So this morning and the whole of today, we are here to share experiences. We are here to get more knowledge. We have experts who are going to guide us through panel discussions. You realize that the program is quite full. So I encourage us to open our minds for the business that is going to take place today. I invite you to fully participate, ask questions, because this is the only forum we have annually to discuss our heritage. I wish you all fruitful discussions today. Thank you for listening to me. And I hope Andrew wants me also to declare that the 12th Annual Indigenous Food and Seed Fair is officially opened. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thanks for reading my mind. I love things to be very official and done. So to those who are just joining us online, I've seen a couple of you who've just checked in. We're discussing today the indigenous and the traditional food, the seeds, and we have a fair currently going on the other side of the hotel. We'll have the fair broadcasted to you that you can join in online and you appreciate the knowledge that will be there. It will be moderated by my colleague, Anwol Katamba. And for this particular moment, we're going to understand the draft policy on genetic resource for food and agriculture. Yesterday, in some of the deliberations, we saw that a lot of policy issues were emerging from the conversations, the frameworks, and how best we can plug the different suggestions and commitments into the policy. And genetic resource was one of those that was alluded to. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to welcome the Assistant Commissioner and a Policy Analyst Institution from MAIF, Mr. Okirol John, to address us about this particular draft policy. Let's welcome the Assistant Commissioner. Round of applause as we welcome Mr. Okirol as he's coming to address us about this particular issue. But just remind you as he's coming, please don't hug any person you see around. Don't shake hands if you can. Please have distanced kind of conversation. As a country, we are on the clear alert of Ebola. We don't know where you came from, you don't know where I came from, but let's just stay within that space. In case you feel a little bit of headache and fever, the Red Cross team is just on the outside. Check in with them. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Just trying to share with you so that you see exactly what is going on. ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to run you very fast through the policy that we are developing to try and protect our genetic resources in Uganda. This policy is a draft. It hasn't gone through the approval processes, but that is the thinking. Actually, this may be this meeting could also help us to get more views, since we have a variety of personalities that are key in this sector. There are many slides, but I'm going to shorten them. Use this one. Since I'm given very little time, I'll leave the presentation behind. Maybe you can read through at your leisure. But why I'm here is actually to take you through what government of Uganda is thinking on how to regulate the genetic resources in Uganda. Everybody, you and me, know, if I go to creation a little bit, because what we are talking about is actually creation. They say God created heaven and earth and everything that is in there. But he went ahead actually to establish a garden for man. And this is what makes agriculture very unique. All the other things were created, but they established a garden for man. What is so funny is man misbehaved and was chased out of that garden. God told him, from today on, you are going to eat from your sweat. Actually, that's why you see everybody wakes up very early in the morning to go and try and work. The essence is to get what to eat. And we actually adopted the sin which the first man committed. So here, we have, of course, the genetic resources created by God. And one of the key issues that we need to ensure is that we sustainably utilize them. We are here today, tomorrow we are not here, but there are people who are coming after us. And one of the key things we should maybe ensure is that, because the Bible says at one time, heaven and the earth will go. I don't know where we shall be, but the word of God will remain. So what we ensure, we as humans, that the end of the world does not go when we are here. And of course, the scientists tell us that the last plant on earth will actually determine when the last man will live. So how do we ensure that these resources, which were given to us free of charge by God, are sustainably utilized? So I have a policy on what government thinks we should really utilize these resources. But before we go to the policy itself, we can go to the next slide. I don't know who is. Yeah, there are a few facts which we need to know. That Uganda is not so big. We are only 241 square kilometers, but our friends in Russia, they are 17 million. So you can see it is just a drop of what Russia is. But it's enough for all of us. What we have to ensure is that we utilize whatever is in Uganda sustainably. Of course, some of this land is water, the other bit is forest, but of course we have encroached so much on the forest. We have mountains, we have lakes, and they tell us the highest mountain is Margarita with 5,000 meters high, and then the deepest is Lake Albert with 621 meters. Currently, agriculture contributes only 24.9% of our GDP, and yet it's currently actually employing over 70% of our population. So you can see So many people are in the sector, but then the contribution of the sector to the overall GDP is so small. Now you find a sector like services, which actually contributes the biggest percentage, but with very few people. I can see cameramen here. These are people who are in the service sector. There are very few of them, but their contribution to the sector is so high. So we need to find a way, if we are leaving agriculture going to services, how do we make sure that agriculture, which is left behind, actually contributes so much? Now you remember we became a protectorate of the Bazungu in 1894. That's when we became a protectorate. Became a protectorate because when those Bazungu came here, they found us a little bit organized. They found us with kingdoms. There was Buganda, Bunyoro, Busoga, Toro, and so on. Now, instead of making us a colony, they said, no, these people are already organized. Let's build on what they have. And we continue. So they made us a protectorate instead of a colony. But when they went away in 1962, the people who made the coat of arms actually summarized all that we had before into this coat of arms. So Uganda is well endowed. We have, of course, the tourism. That's why you see that animal there. We have the rivers, the waters. That's what you see up on the. Well, somebody is not changing the thing. Please, who is operating the slides? Yeah. This thing summarizes what Uganda was before. So I was saying we have, of course, the tourism, which is part of the biodiversity. We have the crane. It shows that people of Uganda are so gentle. We have our Nile. We have our crops and so on. We have our defense mechanism. That drum is our culture. We used to drum if we wanted to go to church, and so on. So I wanted to show you that Uganda is rich of biodiversity, and we should endeavor to make sure that we actually sustainably conserve it. Now, the state of agriculture in Uganda. Of course, before you do a policy, you have to do a scan. What do you have in place? So that as you do a policy, you actually build on what you have and try to bridge the gaps of what you don't have. We are rich. We have currently about 700 species. Of course, we have the plants and we have the animals. In their natural environment, which of course right now has been destroyed so much, and those few that we can no longer conserve them in the natural environment, we try to bring them into our houses, into fridges, and so on. But what is important to note here is that the rate of destruction is so high. And we are giving an example of course, the forests. Initially, we had about 1.5 million hectares of forest, but today we have even less than 0.8. So you can see the rate of destruction, unless something is done, it is so high. Actually, that's why government is trying to come up with a policy and try to conserve the little that we have. Now, the importance of these genetic resources, of course, one is food. For us in agriculture, we are so interested in food security, but of course, people in health, for them, they are into medicine and so on. But again, we can use them for crafts, and of course, we need the varieties. As the environment changes, we need varieties which we can resist. The most important thing here to note is each time you try to improve a variety, you always have to go back to the original plant or animal. That's why we should conserve them. If you go to some of these countries like Brazil, Brazil gets a lot of money. First of all, every country in the world pays to Brazil for actually maintaining that forest. It's the biggest in the world. They pay, even Uganda pays. But then when you go there to do any bit of research, you actually pay money. So it is important that instead of maybe using our forests for sugarcane, we should really conserve them. So we have decided as government that we should come up with a policy to regulate the genetic resources in Uganda. One of the things, if you are developing a policy, that you have to do is you do what they call a regulatory impact assessment. And now what this one helps you with is to establish whether you really have a problem. And if you have a problem in that specific area, what kind of solution do you have maybe to put in place to be able to address that problem. And the RIA also maybe goes ahead to try and establish the benefits on the target communities and of course the benefits on government. How is government going to benefit from the policy that you are putting in place? So that's why we do a RIA. So we have done a RIA for genetic resources and just recommended that we come up with a policy. That's why we are doing a policy. And these days they can never approve your policy unless you do an accompanying implementation plan. So I've done a policy and a plan as well. But the problem that we have right now is that there is a temporary restriction. Government wants to come up with holistic policies, policies which cover maybe a large scope instead of coming up with specific policies. This policy is stalled because of that directive, but to overcome it, the ministry has put in place a committee which is going to look through all the policies that we have in the ministry and see which ones of those qualify to stand alone and the others that should be merged. So there is a process which is ongoing, and it's just my prayer that this genetic resources policy is one of those that is going to stand alone. And once it is approved, then we shall take it through the approval processes. It is government, it is cabinet which approves all policies of government. So once this committee is done with this work, then we shall send it to cabinet to have it approved. And of course, the other processes will be implementation, monitoring, and evaluation. So that is the progress we have done. We have gone so far with the policy. Maybe to give you a little bit of an overview of the policy itself is, of course, the problem that we have with genetic resources in Uganda is that they are getting eroded. That is the major problem. And the other secondary problem is they are getting diluted. There are so many intermarriages or breeding, crossbreeding, and as you crossbreed, of course, the originality is lost. So that is the biggest problem which we have with genetic resources in Uganda. But of course, the other secondary problems is that we are not adding value to them. And of course, if we are to get money from these resources, we need to add value, and we need to find market. I was in the US, one of the streets in the US, they were selling, Rwanda actually is the one which was selling baskets, those nice baskets where you put kalo. They were selling them very expensively. And I was imagining, why can't Uganda really do so many of them? And then we go and take advantage of such a market. So we need to add value to our genetic resources, and we also need to find a market for them. That is the only way which can help us to sustainably conserve these resources. Otherwise, if we don't do that, we are going to reach a stage when we shall have nothing. Now, why they are getting eroded, there are so many problems. Of course, one of them is about the population itself. As the population increases, you need more land for agriculture and so on. Of course, the development itself, we are coming up with highways. When you go to Entebbe these days, there is that road which goes all the way through the swamps. Of course, they destroyed a lot of genetic resources in that area. There are several causes. You will read them maybe later. Now, if we don't conserve these genetic resources, we shall come to a stage when we shall have nothing. Of course, when God was creating the earth, He put certain resources in certain areas. In the desert, you have oil, mainly. In Uganda, I was told the other day they discovered, is it gold worth 13 trillion? If we can only maybe explore that, then poverty in Uganda will not be there. So God was hiding certain resources in certain areas. So if we don't maintain them where they were put by God, then we shall come to a stage where we shall have completely nothing. So we need to conserve them. And one way of conserving them is creating awareness like in a meeting like this one, so that everybody knows that it's important. Whatever genetic resource you have next to you, make sure you conserve it. But of course, the other most important way of conserving them is coming up with a law, a policy and a law. Because man is so stubborn. You remember when the children of Israel were being gotten from Egypt. They were giving them food, water, and everything. But still, apart from that, they went on creating their small gods. So man, by nature, is very stubborn. So unless you have a law or a policy to regulate them, then they will do whatever they want. So that's why we are coming up with the law. Now, policy direction, of course, the scope. Our policy covers all the genetic resources, starting with plants, animals, fish, and those insects, those worms below the ground. And of course, it is targeting so many people. That's why all of you are here. You are farmers, you are policy makers, there are scientists, academia, researchers, and so on. So the target is wide. The target group is wide. Now, for you to come up with a policy, you need to see what the policy intends to achieve at the end of the implementation period, and that is the vision. All of you know we have a vision in Uganda for 2040. We need to transform our people from peasantry to a modern industrialized community, something like that. But for the vision for our policies, we need a competitive resource diversity benefiting everybody. That is our dream. If everybody can conserve whatever they have in their neighborhood, then at the end of the day, that's what we want to see. And to do that, that is where the mission comes in. We need to harness the genetic resources for food and agriculture and enhance resilience. The overall objective is that one. You can read it a little later. There are 4 objectives in this policy. One of them is we need to protect these resources in their natural environment. And where you cannot do it, then you use the ex situ maybe approach, where you get them from their natural environment, take them to the labs, and so on. The other second objective that we need to do to conserve these resources is information. And I am sharing information with you. I'm emphasizing that it's very important that everybody conserves whatever he has in the neighborhood. Of course, research is very important. Of course, adding value to these resources is very important, and we need to do that. That is under objective 3. And of course, the other last objective is coordination. You need to bring all people around the genetic resources subsector together at one time in point. That's why I think we have a conference like this one. Ask each one what they are doing and how they are protecting these resources within their custody. So coordination is very important. And of course, building the capacity of human resources on how to conserve them. We are not like our grandfathers who used to do things the way they used to do. These days, things have changed a little bit. Now, the policy has 4 areas of intervention, and the areas of interventions actually are related to the objectives themselves. And the first one is strengthening the in situ and ex situ conservation. The second one is increasing access to and then sustainable use of the germplasm. And the third one is, of course, research and innovation. And the last one is strengthening coordination of the stakeholders. It is important because unless we know who is doing what and where, then you cannot really conserve these resources. The policy has an implementation arrangement. The Ministry of Agriculture is the overall coordinator, but we have a committee that is multi-sectoral from all, including private sector and the farmers, that has been put in place to coordinate this policy. Then we have a coordination desk. This is like a secretariat. It does the day-to-day implementation of the policy. But of course, the policy it cascades from the national level and it goes to the district level. So at the district, we have committees that coordinate the policy. And now there is the lowest delivery, government delivery, service delivery point is the parish. So we have parish government committees coordinating the implementation of this policy. We have an awareness strategy. It is important to bring people on board on how to conserve these resources, and maybe to once in a while share experiences from each of them. So we have a strategy which actually tries to communicate whatever is in the subsector of genetic resources. Financing for the policy, government, we need about 175 billion to implement the policy over a period of 5 years. Most of the money will come from government, but of importance here is each one has a role to play, including the farmer themselves. That contribution that you do actually is translated into cash and is part of the 175 billion. So you also have a role to play to finance the implementation of this policy. There are financial institutions, because we have gotten money from them. I hope they are also part of this meeting. And of course, we need to bring the international development partners by interesting them to give us money to implement this policy. Of course, for you to be able to complete the cycle of a policy development and implementation, you need to monitor and evaluate. We have a monitoring plan. We encourage people to do regular monitoring, and of course we encourage them to do periodic awareness and evaluation of whatever they are doing. And most importantly, as ministry, we actually build the capacity of every actor, because we have that overall role given to us by the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda. So that is what the policy is, and that's what I had to share with you. But of most importance for me to stress here is these genetic resources are part of life. The day they cease to exist is the day everybody here starts to die. So it's important that whatever is within your mandate or within your vicinity to control or regulate, please do it with all the effort. Thank you very much for listening to me, and that's what I had to share.
Let's clap for Assistant Commissioner John Okirol. And because yesterday in the academia spaces, they had lots of questions. The guy here has a microphone, just raise up your hand. If you have questions about this policy, we still have the Assistant Commissioner here. Anyone from the academia or from the researchers who have questions about the draft policy on genetic resource for food and agriculture, this is the time. Just raise up your hand, you tell me your question and your name, and then you ask your question before he leaves. Do you have questions? Do we have questions, friends? We're good? Okay, there is a question here. There is a question in front here. Don't get scared. We are here to learn. We are here to learn. Kindly just mention your name and your question to the Assistant Commissioner.
Thank you very much, Mr. Okirol. My name is Samuel Murungi. I'm from Fort Portal. I work for Joint Effort to Save the Environment. I had, during the presentations, some kind of mix which I would need to be cleared. Mm-hmm. The presenter talked about the National Genetic Resources Policy, and then at some point I saw or hear him mention the National Livestock Policy. Are these two policies independent, or they are, or it is one policy looking at crop resources and then livestock resources? Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other question? There is a question at the back, and there is a lady there.
Thank you very much. Mm-hmm. My name is Nasijoba Irene, from a farmer from Mukono district. Mr. Commissioner talked about the forest cover, that it was 1.5, now it is 0.8. I don't know whether there's a government policy on that. What are the measures which are being taken to see that our forest is recovered? because where I come from, there are some responsible people who are telling people to cut trees, indigenous and planting exotic, and there are so many. Our forest is receding, is going. So what are the measures?
Thank you so much. There is a gentleman, right? Those two gentlemen, we can get your questions.
Okay. My name is William Amanya.
Yes, Amanya.
Not a question, but to inquire on how the ministry have been able to consult, because we know this policy require consultations from regions and other actors. So we'd need to know more about that.
Okay, thank you, Amanya. There is another question around there, gentleman.
Thank you for allowing me. I'm Ochile David from Tedo, Soroti.
Nice to see you.
So I'd wanted to know whether government has any policy which encourages people to continue planting trees, indigenous and others, because to me I felt like if they could be motivated, they will plant more, and other people to be trained the best to trees.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. There is another hand at the far end. Friends, whenever you come to forums like this, treat this as a knowledge market. You need to learn a couple of things before you go back. Your name is Sebo?
Thank you. I'm Eddie Muchivi from Slow Food. I have just one concern, and also to seek guidance on how we can overcome this. I'm also a farmer from Mukono and an agronomist. So today, there is clear evidence that our plant breeders here in Uganda are seeking genes which are already patented by other corporations to incorporate into our local varieties in the sense of researching on GMOs.
Yep.
How is this policy going to protect farmers like me who are using the local varieties and do not want to see these patented genes? Because when breeders incorporate genes into local varieties, even if it's genetic engineering or synthetic breeding, they automatically become breeders' varieties. We've seen the enormous naming of local bean varieties into coded names like Mac bean or Mac soya or Nabe bean, like that. The farmers automatically lose ownership of the variety once it's renamed. So how is this policy going to protect the farmers from losing this resource?
Thank you so much, Muchibi. I think for now we can just take those. The others will come after this is dealt with. Assistant Commissioner, possibly you can come and you respond to all those at once, and we shall have the others. Thank you.
Thank you, members. At least when I get questions, then I know members who are listening. The first one was Mr. Murungi. He's talking of the genetic resources policy and then the livestock resources policy. I don't remember seeing that one. But of course, when you talk of genetic resources, it includes all those. It includes the crops, it includes the livestock, it includes the fish, and everything that is under the soil, the microbials and so on. So it's the whole area of genetics. So if you saw livestock somewhere, then maybe I was highlighting livestock as part of the livestock policy. I mean the genetic resources. But the two don't mean the same. Of course, we have a livestock policy, which is maybe meant to highlight more on livestock. But this one here is about genetics, and livestock is one part of the genetics. Irene talks of measures to protect our forests. Of course, the forest cover has been eroded so much. It's true we have, of course, a number of measures that were put in place. There is a forest policy itself, and maybe to implement that policy, there is even an authority, the National Forest Authority, which is supposed to oversee that our forests are actually not eroded. But of course, you and me know what happens. Sometimes we are only technical people. In Uganda, all our bosses are the political leaders. You may have the intentions of protecting whatever is under your custody, but if your boss, who is the political leader, is telling you something else, then you may not have so much to do. But we have, of course, despite all that, we have the policies, we have the interventions actually to try and restore all that we have lost. You've had programs of tree planting actually to try and restore what we have lost. We have the NEMA, which is actually supposed to protect all our wetlands. But of course, as I told you, we have a lot of competing pressures. The population is growing, so sometimes you are forced to determine between maintaining a forest and actually giving food to the people that maybe stay around there. That's why all those, the forests which were gazetted sometime back during the Bazungu time, are sometimes actually degazetted to ensure that there is at least some land for some people to grow food. So it is just a mix. You have to balance between what to eat today and maybe to maintain the environment. But to answer your question is, we have the policies, we have the national policy, forest policy. Now this one is also coming to actually supplement what the national forest policy is doing, and we have a real, a comprehensive authority overseeing actually to ensure that the forests in Uganda are not depleted. Somebody talked about consultations. Of course, consultations are very critical. The policy has to be consulted. The communities or targeted groups are supposed to be consulted widely. We've done these consultations. Maybe, unfortunately, you've not been part of them. But since the policy actually hasn't been approved, if the ban is lifted and the genetic resources is one of those to stand alone, we shall have another national consultative or validation workshop where we shall call most of you to come and give you final input before our cabinet approves it. But we have done the wide consultations as required by the policy development process. It's unfortunate maybe they have not reached you. Somebody from Soroti, he says whether people should be encouraged to plant trees, both foreign and indigenous. Yeah, this initiative is on. People are being encouraged to plant trees. Unfortunately, people are planting most of these foreign trees like eucalyptus. They tell us eucalyptus requires a lot of water. And actually, the water in Uganda is getting less and less because we have planted a lot of these trees. So maybe at one point, we shall need to encourage people to plant our local varieties. Because I think there is a reason as to why God gave certain areas, certain trees, and certain areas, they are not trees. For example, if you went to a desert, you find short trees. But those short trees are actually what are making those people in those areas to survive. So I think we need to change a little bit. Instead of planting a lot of eucalyptus, when you go to most of these hills around, when you travel on Mityana, I think Mityana Road is worst. Every hill has eucalyptus, but they tell us it has a disadvantage. But there is a program. I think even World Bank gave us money. In Namamve at one time, actually they had apportioned that forest. That was the forest initially. For people who were born yesterday, that was the forest. People were given plots actually to plant trees, and you were given money to do that. But of course that program ended, and the land use in that place has also changed. instead of trees, we now have an industrial area. And the last one is the person on breeders and then the GMOs. How do we maintain the originality of some of these breeds which our farmers do have? The good thing is that the GMO thing has not been passed yet. There's a lot of struggle. At one time, they had almost assented to it, but then later on, I think the president, maybe after doing his own research, he realized there was a danger that we are going into. So the policy and the law, it is a law, was reversed to Parliament to put certain things right. But how is this policy here going to help you to maintain whatever you have as a farmer? Of course, this policy may not enable you to maintain what you have as a farmer. We have supplementary policies. We have a breeding policy. Now, the breeding policy actually tries to ensure that whatever we have in Uganda, we maintain that originality of it. And then here as a policy, of course, when you say we are going to strengthen whatever we have in the original environment, for example, Objective 1, we are going to strengthen the in situ and ex situ conservation. Now, when we say that, what we are going to do is we are going to make sure that if we have a certain tree in a certain locality, we ensure it is that tree that is going to be there. And if it is getting extinct in that place, we get the few what is left there and take it into our lab or into our conservation centers, and we conserve it there. So each time we want to use it, we go to, I saw somebody from Naro here, we go to them and maybe try to, we get the original seed from those guys. That is one way this policy is going to help you to maintain whatever you have. And of course, Objective 2 is also talking of increasing access to sustainable use of germplasm. Germplasm is of course also trying, it is like a seed also. If you have the germplasm of a certain crop and you want to maintain it, each time you want it, you either go to where it is or you go to our friends in Naro who have actually gene banks for these particular crops. So apart from the the GMOs, of course these yielding varieties which have come on board, and most farmers actually have preference for them because you reap much more than actually you expect in 1 year. And you can forget about our local seed and germplasm. But of course they have a danger, they can do very well in 1 year. After that, you start losing. So I think there are only 5 questions, Mr. Moderator, unless there's something else. I can beg to leave.
Do we still have any other question to the Assistant Commissioner? Oh, there are questions. Let's have a mic there. You're going to bear with us, you're youthful here. There is a question here.
Thank you. My name is Moses Akugizibwe. I work for KRC Uganda for Poto. I want to ask about something to do with conservation. I saw you mention something about conservation, but the government of Uganda has not mentioned so much about reduced chemical use. And when we talk about food systems and building resilience in nutrition, we see a lot of chemical use, a lot of cancerous cells are being introduced to most of these crops that we feed on. So in this policy of conservation, is there anything to do with reduced chemical use? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any other question? Do we have any other question? Okay, there is one there.
Thank you very much, Commissioner, for the good presentation. My name is John Sekajgo. I'm a PhD researcher at Mountains of the Moon University in Fort Potro. My question is really, it's bad. You talked about the plan that you are also developing in tandem with the policy, although we have not seen the plan. So it's hard to know whether what I'm going to ask is already catered for in the plan. You will understand that most of these varieties and seeds, whether indigenous or foreign, that we are promoting, are controlled by the economics. People on the market will buy what is affordable and what is there in plenty. And the proponents of the modified varieties always tend to put in money that tend to subsidize the products from these modified varieties. And at the end in the market, they are the cheapest. Most of our traditionally produced products in the market will always sometimes be 3 times higher than the modified ones. If you go in the store to ask for a bag, a craft bag, you know, the price will be 3 times higher than the bag you find in the shops, in the arcades. So which strategy do you have deliberately to ensure that at least there is either cost sharing or these farmers and people who are dealing in these traditional crops, you know, have their products on the market getting a competitive advantage over the modified ones, both in terms of price or cost and quality in the market?
Thank you, Sekajugo. There is another question from Area here. This is getting interesting now. The brains are working. Area possibly has another question. Previously they were working, but they were still processing all this. In a minute, Area.
Thank you. Mine is a bit different. This country has a lot of policies, and a lot has been presented here. I just want to know from the commissioner, isn't it maybe time we looked at the number of policies and what we have and see how we can maybe be merged? Because the truth is that there's a lot of policies that we have, and a lot is still going to really to West. It's talking about the breeding policy, quite a lot that is there. Maybe just to know from what is the challenge? Why is it that even when we have these policies in place, a lot of degradation is still happening? We are losing a lot of our genetic resources, and yet these policies are there.
Okay. Commissioner, I think you can take it off from there. You can start off. Proudly Ugandan. You can take it from there.
The issue of chemical use in conservation. Of course, this is a real concern, and the problem is coming because we have over-tampered with our environment. You know, most of these insects and so on used to hide themselves in some of these places, the forests, the swamps, and so on. But people have actually gone as far as destroying the forests. They have gone as far as destroying the wetlands. When you come to our ministry in Entebbe, we live with monkeys. I think that place was originally for monkeys. It was a forest. But because government decided to go and put offices there, they have no other habitat apart from living with people. These people who are staying near the national parks and game reserves, they live with these animals. So the problem is actually man. Man has gone to invade actually the habitats of some of these organisms. Organisms. So in order to ensure you plant something and get out of it, you need to spray. And that's why the use of chemicals has now come up as an issue. But of course, to address this, we are trying as much as possible to try and reduce the use of the chemicals in controlling the pests and diseases. So we are encouraging the use of organic chemicals. We have come up with an organic policy, and we are encouraging a number of investors and private sector actually to come up with organic chemicals. In Uganda so far, we have so many, we have about 7 of them that are doing organic chemicals. The biggest is in Ruzira here, not very far from here. They are doing organic chemicals, and actually they are proving to work. So we are encouraging the first of all, production of organic crops, plants and crops, and even the animals. Of course, the Frisians that we see, they also started as local animals. But these guys went on improving and improving until they came up with, for example, Frisian or a Jersey. So we are encouraging that kind of approach. How do we use whatever we have to come up with something which is maybe very productive, high yielding, but using our regional maybe samples that we have. The problem is because our friends from the other advanced world had gone have gone very far beyond us, and they wouldn't like us to go through the process that they went through. That's why actually they are giving us whatever they have developed so that we just copy and paste, which is, I think, wrong. So we are copying even the wrong things, and in the process, our communities are suffering. So the issue of chemicals is very critical. I think to reduce this, we are encouraging the use of organic chemicals, and we are encouraging actually us developing some of these high-yielding varieties from our local varieties. And NARO has taken on this one seriously, and they are trying to come up with high-yielding varieties, but developing them from our local varieties. The issue of seeds and economics. Of course, the improved varieties are much cheaper. You know, when you do something over and over again, the cost of production goes low. They're enjoying what they call economies of scale. But of course, our local people are just starting, and of course, the operational costs are very high. So I think government is coming in and using NARO to try and actually develop the seed, the germplasm, whatever it is, so that instead of importing them, we actually get our local varieties. We're also encouraging private sector, those who are able, to come up with, maybe government helps. They come up with a budget that this is what I'm trying to do. For example, recently, there's a gentleman called Sanga. He's done a vaccine, and he's going to do another seed. I mean, he's trying to develop a seed. It's a long process. I wish he was here, I would actually explain it to you. He was explaining it to us. So what government has done, they've given him a chunk of money to try and at least develop whatever seed and whatever variety in vaccines that he's trying to come up with, so that if it works, then maybe government can take it up and sell it to the 1 inch instead of all the time importing varieties, I mean chemicals and seed from our developed partners. So NARO is doing a good job. We are developing varieties. When you go to beans, when you go to cassava, when you go to most of these agricultural seed that we need to develop our agriculture, NARO is actually doing them. But of course, they haven't gone very far, so we still have to import those who are able. They still have to get the other imported seed. Then finally, somebody is talking of a number of policies, a lot of duplication and wastage of resources, which is true. That's why I'm telling you, this policy has stalled a little bit because government has realized this, and you even see from the rationalization of agencies. There's a period when government actually came up with a lot of authorities. And now they are realizing the cost of running these authorities is so high. So they are trying to rationalize, take them to ministries where they belong. So equally, of course, most of these authorities were created either using a law or a policy or something like that. So as they bring them back, those laws are being, of course, being quashed, and these people are coming back to the ministry. So we are trying to look at a process of harmonizing these policies. Committees have been set up in various ministries to try and look at the compendium of policies that they have, see those which qualify to stand alone, and then see those maybe which qualify to be merged. So there's an ongoing exercise to try and reduce this. It is true, what you're saying is true. Some of them are actually repetitive. But of course, when you go to economics again, what is actually a policy? A policy is simply a guide. The only difference between a policy and the other guidelines is that a policy is actually a commitment of government, because you take it to cabinet, it is approved, and once cabinet approves it, then government has owned it, unlike the other guidelines. But a policy is simply a guide which tries to address a problem which is repetitive in nature, and of course it is systemic. It actually affects a number of people. Now, if it is a guide, why don't you have a guide for anything? So it is two-way. Of course, originally people used to do policies and they would go to cabinet ask for money. But finance said no, and if you are able to do a policy and do it within the money you have, that's okay. So that one was stopped. Now this cry of having so many and duplication, we have so many laws, but one of the requirements is that if you are to do a law, you have to take it to the Solicitor General. The Solicitor General is the custodian of all the laws. So he looks through his laws and see whether there is harmony in the law that you're trying to come up with, or there is a contradiction. If there is a contradiction, they remove the contradiction and allow you to go on with your law. I think what we are lacking is that unit which kind of harmonizes all the policies that we have. But either way, we are trying to reduce them because there is a lot of wastage, there is a lot of duplication. So you have noted it right.
Let's give our commissioner a round of applause. You've really exhausted and you've answered the questions to the people here. So friends, we're going to have a tea break, and after the tea break we shall go, the ones who are going to be in the exhibition side will actually go down, and that session will be moderated by my colleague Anwar Katamba. The ones in the exhibition tents, we're going to go around just to understand and make sense of what you actually have. But we're going to grab a cup of coffee and a few bites at the back, and then we can go for that. Then the ones who will stay here shall have a session and a panel to discuss on a couple of issues. But for now, let's take a tea break for 15 minutes only. Let's have a tea break for now. Thank you.
Care, people care, fair share. These are the ethics of a sustainable world economy. We developed a method of farming that heals the planet while producing some of the most potent herbs for human consumption. Our founders believe that it is not only possible to provide employment to all the jobless people through agroforestry industries, but that it is critical to human survival that we do this as a business, collectively. Rural community and eco-restoration, when done correctly, have proven to revive soils, uplift families out of poverty, and produce some of the most potent herbal medicines known to humankind. Ventry Innovations was born out of the need to bridge our African agroforestry company, Priceless Farms, with the global markets of pharmaceutical and natural products industry. Our approach to going public on the Canadian Stock Exchange is driven by the desire to become a globally recognized eco-restoration, natural products, and technology innovation corporation. We have built our group of companies around the central ideology that, working with nature, rather than against it, is the future of business. With the advent of blockchain technologies, we have developed a utility token which will enable anyone in the world to participate in the expansion of our model across the tropical world. Our forests are more than just herbal tapestries with vast spectrums of phytochemical molecules to exploit. They are remedies for global warming, and supply staple foods from the space between the trees. We call this our World Rejuvenation Platform. It is an adaptable climate-smart human-centric approach to creating large supplies of foods, fuels, fibers, and medicines for generations to come. Ventry Innovations is developing into 5 of the top trending markets in the world today: carbon offsets, herbal and natural products, agriculture land acquisition, biofuels, and education technologies to support the rural population's uptake of our systems that can spread throughout the tropics. The herbal industry is growing by 18% per year, while the growth of carbon offsets and food production are set on a major rise in the coming years. Ventry is perfectly positioned to make a major positive impact on our world. We need as many people as possible to invest in our mission, share in the global vision for a cleaner, smarter, and safer world. If you're looking to put your money towards real solutions, with real returns, consider an investment in Ventry, where money truly does grow on trees.
I'm known by the name Sasio Grace, and I come from Soroti District, Asurete Sub-County, Obule Parish, and Otaba Village. Professionally, I am a farmer who was one time trained as a TOT. So as I talk, I am a TOT, and at the same time, I am a multiplier. I practice organic farming. I am also a TOT of organic farming. I majorly do compost making. I also do trench composting. Somehow not so much. I do water harvesting, which is not actually in a deeper way. I also do mulching. The carbon actually took me through a lot of experiences, whereby, first of all, much as I've been thinking that I am well versed with organic farming, but to the places that I reached, the farms that I was taken to through with the carbon, I found that there were so many experiences that I needed to have had before. And it is actually one of the opportunities that I've had again. I have quite experienced some of the pesticides which I've not been knowing how to produce. I've experienced some of the practices. I've experienced, actually I have reached to some bigger farms that I had never reached in this caravan period. I had never met a solar dryer drying products for export. But the process they took us through, actually, it was very, very impressive. To the organizers, I must say that I'm so grateful for what they organized for us farmers. Because what they took us through, being a lay farmer, I don't think I would have had that chance.
My name is Simwe Jody. I'm located in Wakiso town, Wakiso district. The village is called Choga. I'm an organic farmer, basically dealing in pastures for animals. I'm farming pastures for animals. I do keep goats and I keep cows. And my farm is located in 2.5 acres. It's a demonstration farm. Organic farming, it needs someone who is patient. For example, these people who are using like conventional farming, they like shortcuts. The Knowledge Center for Organic Agriculture has really helped me a lot. For example, we have done the training. Even right now we are training, getting knowledge, getting exposed, getting different networks for my other fellow farmers. When we visit different farmers, you really learn a lot. From the beginning of this caravan, I have met different farmers practicing in different, some are planting different crops, different from what I do. And actually I have also developed a feeling from here right away, I'm not going to stay in pastures only. For example, when I went to Guru Farm, I was really impressed with what they were doing. They had like greens on the side, they had turkeys, they had fish, goats. I would like to say thank you to PELUM Uganda. You have really helped me a lot. You have exposed me to different farmers. I've got networks, I've got connections. I really thank PELUM Uganda so much.
Ettaka lyaffe likuuma bulungi n'okuba eggimu tetufuuyira. Buli lw'ofuuyira otta obuwuka buli obuleeta amabanga bino ziri bafuutinga kaba akatoka nga katono wapangisiza ate oyagala okola ekiki ekiriyo n'ofunza naye manya nti okufunza okwo bw'onooba okola ki bw'onooba osimba ekitooke kajja kuba kati nya wano okole fuuti mmeka emu ku emu wano wonooyiwa nti obukuta ne bubwe nga bw'oteekamu bw'otuumu bibulirayo obukuta tomaasaamu.
Thank you, David. Thank you so much. Friends, if you check your time, it is coming to noon. And like I said, I love time. Time is of essence. And for purposes of being in sync with our friends who are online, we are actually going to run the exhibition independently, and thereafter we shall return with a panel discussion after we have had the exhibition that is going to be on the outside. So if you know that you have a stall and you're one of those, except for the rapporteurs and the others who are going to stay in here, the rest of us, I would encourage us that we go to the exhibition site and we make sense of the innovations and the seeds, the traditional food and seeds that are down the side. I'm going to be joined by my colleague Anwal Katamba. I'm not sure whether Anwal is on the other side. Anwal, can you hear me? Can you see me? I need to have a feed. Our technical team, I need to have a feed of Anwal Katamba on ground that he can paint for us the picture, what is on the other side. So after you've had your tea, I would request that you can go by the stalls and we take beat by beat from one stall to another. But to the academia and those who are capturing the data from the inside, we can stay here while we follow the proceeds on the other side. Anwal, can you hear me? Mr. Katamba, in the exhibition side.
Yes, Andrew Chamagelo.
Okay, Katamba, can you paint for us a picture? You take up this other session. Can I have a feed of you? Can I have the feed of Katamba? I love to talk to someone I see. Perfect. That is it. Katamba, you're taking up this session of the food and seed fair from now up to lunchtime. Kindly just paint for us a picture, what you see there and what should we expect on this other side.
Thank you so much, my colleague, my mentor, Andrew Chamagila. I'm very sure today's evening session you will be hammering on the right pulse since we are working together today. Here outside, people have come to showcase the indigenous food. As you know, that we are on our 12th annual Indigenous Food and Seed Fair. So people have come with different types of food, different species of seeds. So it's a good experience. I'm sure people who are going to follow us will be having a great experience. We are going to be moving on a stall per stall so that we know which everyone has brought for us today as we shall be moving on. But some of the stalls are not ready. I don't know whether this one is ready. Are you ready? Are we going to use English, Luganda, which language? Luganda. Mchalo na yagala tukosolde mya Luganda. Kakati wano wetuli we wali Central Region. Central Region ebeda Buganda. Kale. Twagala. I use this one. Kakati embera ya kwerinda bulwadde bwa COVID ne Ebola. Tugenda kozesa emizindalo ebiri. Twagala otubuulire omudaala gu promotinga gutya omulama gwe tuliko ogw'okukuuma emmere yaffe ennansi n'ensigo ennansi okulaba nga teziggwawo. Ngenda gukukwatira guno.
omulama gwe tuliko
tutandike n'erinnya
amanya Nabatanzi Margaret eno kulika Uganda.
Okay.
Kakati omulama gwe tuliko era yensigo eno naye ng'ate nze ndi nnyo ku nsigo etefa eteggwaawo ensigo ennungi eddagala ate nga mmere eya bulijjo eya doodo. Doodo ono abedda twamutwalanga nva kulyako buli greens naye kakati tulya enva zino bw'obanga ozikozesezza greens kyekisookera ddala. Ekyokubiri oyinamu enva. Ekyokusatu mulimu akawunga. Ekyokuna tufumbamu obuugi.
Akawunga ng'okajje mu kinyago.
Nkajje mu buwunga buno obwa doodo.
Doodo mukolamu obuwunga.
Doodo tumukolamu obuwunga. Tukola juice ono nga tumukola era nga tukozesa omubisi gw'enjuki nga tugattamu ennaanansi olw'ensonga nti ennaanansi eyamba nnyo ku bulwadde bwa kansa. Kati ate bwe tugattamu omubisi gw'enjuki ate n'abasukaali kati abasukaali abayagala akawoomerera akatali kasukaali ono wa bulijjo. Kati tukozesa omubisi gw'enjuki n'ennaanansi ne doodo ne tubeera nga omulwadde oyo asobola okubeera omulungi ne bw'oba tonnalwala birungi obikozesa osobole okwegema. Bagamba okugema kusinga okuwonya. Tuyinayo emmere eno era nsigo za doodo ze tutandikirako okulya nga tulya ng'alya entungo. Tuyina engeri gye tubukolamu era nga tukozesa omubisi gw'enjuki nga tukola obuboolo buyamba nnyo abaana bagenda ku ssomero. Kwegamba emmere eno tegenda kuggwaawo kubanga ensigo eno ensigo tevunda. Ogitereka emyaka n'emyaka yo teggwaawo. Nze mbadde nsaba nti doodo ate mwangu nnyo okulima ate ng'alimu ssente. Kati nze kano botompa mutwalo sikakuwa. Kakati mulimu kaawa. Kale buli kimu kyonna kyonna ekiri wano nti kituyamba okubeera tugamba ebikoola biggwaawo ne byengera. Kati bikube bikaze bulungi tubiteeka mu kifo ekyekusifu ne bisobola okukala obulungi ate nabyo ne tubijjamu enva. Bwe tumaliriza ate doodo oyo atuyamba nnyo okubika ettaka lyaffe lyeriri madamu nyambakaawo nti tuba tubimaliriza bituyamba nnyo okubeera ng'ate tukuuma ettaka lyaffe ng'ate gimu olw'ebintu ebyo tukozesa.
Mu mbeera y'okukuuma ettaka lyaffe nga gimu nga teryonoonese wabeerawo embeera y'ebiwuka. Ebiwuka tebirya doodo bwe biba birya doodo ebyo byo mubirwanyisa mutya? Ebiwuka
ebyo oddira buddizivu n'ogenda n'omansaako tetuyina ddagala lyonna lyetuteekako ku doodo.
Okay.
Nsebo.
Kale ndowooza mwe katubeerekereze tugende kuba omudaala omulala. Tuli mu Central Region. Central Region is Buganda. We have a lot of food species in Buganda. Waliwo wano yena omulala? Oh. Okay. Which language are we going to use? We can use Luganda.
There are some messages in English here.
Then we can use English so that everyone can be in position to understand what we are talking about. So briefly tell us what you have on your stall.
The stall here, I'm by names of Sonko Moses from Kulika, Uganda. On our stall here, we have a demonstration garden of pineapple, how it is prepared from the first stage, how the garden is prepared, mulching, and you can see at the extreme end how the pineapple grow. The other side, when it is young, it has fruited. Here, it's now ready. Here, we have already harvested. After harvesting, we have another income we get. That is the suckers. We have the crown sucker, the one you see. They are like these ones. These are the crown.
So those ones act as seeds?
Seeds. Okay. They are of two types. We have another sucker. It's so-called. They are the suckers. We have the suckers and the crown. These are the crown. The one comes from the bottom. They are called the suckers.
Are these pineapples exotic or they are the local ones?
They are the local ones. You see, the variety is called smooth cayenne.
Okay.
Called ananas commercial scientific name. Our local language, it's called ananas. So this is the production cost you can see at it here.
Any food nutrients you can share with us?
Yeah. This, the production you can use 7.81 millions. Within 5 years after harvesting, you can harvest a total of 40 million, 3,000 shillings.
You're talking on which scale of land?
That's 1 acre.
Okay.
1 acre. Then you can get a profit of 220,000 shillings. That is the spacing of pineapple. You can intercrop them because we are so ecological. We can intercrop pineapple, matoke, cassava, beans and maize on different intervals.
On one piece of land?
On one piece of land. So that is also income which is added on this other one, which I have not costed it properly, but it's another income. That is the spacing, as you see, one by one.
What you mean, pineapples do not affect matoke, cassava, beans and maize?
They don't affect, they are friendly.
Oh.
The other side, those are the crops you intercrop. That is the spacing, the minimum number of plants you can intercrop. Okay. It's directed here. The other practices we use such that we are not affected by pests and diseases. That's deep plowing, timely weeding, intercropping, ridge making, application of manure and mulching. Another thing is agroforestry. When we dig pineapples, we leave some trees for like a fruit trees, such that even we, the farmers, when we are tired while making some work in the garden, we can go and pick a mango tree.
Now, when it comes to agroecology land use, do you use spraying and whatever?
We don't use. We use the other practice.
Do the pests and control disease?
The disease and weeds. We normally do timely weeding. That's the first practice.
Okay.
Another practice, it's mulching. We use 2 types of mulching. You can use these grasses, as you see within the city, you just collect it and you mulch as you see there. Another mulch, which is the multi-purpose, it's coffee husks. It has both fertilizers, nutrients, and which can help the pineapple to grow well. Another thing, they work as mulches.
So this is also for Kulika, or there are other exhibitors? This is also Kulika. You can come. So briefly, I want you to take us through these crops. We can stand here so that the camera people can be ready, can be getting you. I will hold this one.
Sanso kubalaba nalongonda jirero vinsa semate kakati nga tuli ku mudaala gwaffe guno tulaba nti nno tulina enva zaffe ez'enjawulo nnyingi. Tulina ekibira kyaffe kino kivaamu enjulu, kiriko emiti, ebinyawa byaffe bino kwebiri ebizungu, tulina ebibbo, tubirikisa obukeedo, tulina empombo, endagabyo, buli ekiva ku kitooke kyonna kyonna. Tukolamu enkofiira, matebo, enkata yaffe, ebyokuzanyisa by'abaana tukekkereza ne tubeera nga tetugenda mu maduuka. Tulina ekibira kyaffe ekyo, enjulu ziizo, ensansa ziizino, era tulukako emikeeka. Bajjajjaffe era zino enjeyo zino ze baalukisanga. Zino essubi baazimbanga ennyumba yaabwe nga guno gubeera mu faliso, guno obwanyo gy'emifaliso gyaffe. Emmuli zaffe ziizo n'ebinsambwe biibino tubirina, lino ly'eddagala lye tukozesa lwe luwoko. Tulina enva zino ez'enjawulo, tulina ebijanjaalo, tulina sayiri, tulina obuyindiyindi, obulo, omuwemba n'ebirala bingi nnyo.
Ndaba tebifaanagana nnyabo, sooka ojja okomewo tunyonyole ku bijanjaalo bino.
Essebo.
Ndaba tebifaanagana.
Tebifaanagana. Tulinawo obujanjaalo buno obweru, ababumanyi babwagala nnyo. Tulinawo obwa kyenvu, tulinawo enkoolimbo, tulinawo obuyindiyindi bulanda ku miti, naye nga kika kyanjawulo. Tulinawo obutula, tulinawo empindi, era obuyindiyindi obw'ekika ekirala n'ebigaaga. Tulinawo soya, tulinawo sayiri, tulinawo obulo, tulinawo omuwemba, tulinawo obutiko, tulinawo entuntunu, ebinyeebwa ebizungu, amatugunda, tulinawo obutunda buno obukakalubira, tulina amapaapaali. Ebibala byonna tubina ovakkedo tumulina, tulina amakoba ago gampeerezeeko, tulina amatungulu.
Kati byonna tuyinza obutabimalaayo.
Katulinawo n'ennimiro n'emiti gyaffe.
Otubuulireko obutiko buno abazungu bwe bayita mushrooms bulina migaso ki era Omuganda abukozesa mu mbeera ki?
Obutiko buno tubukuula bukuzi Mukama abutumese ne tubufuna bufunyi, naye ng'emigaso gyabwo ddagala ku bwoka obw'abaana, era omwana ng'azaaliddwa buno busooka okumuwaako. N'emikolo gyaffe egy'abalongo obutiko buno tubweyambisa mu Buganda muno. Kakati kabeere nti nno omuntu asanze omusezi, buli muntu yenna alina okuba nga yeekumisa obutiko buno. Omuntu bw'asanga omusezi n'amukuba ekitambo, oyinza obutamanya nti nno oyo munnaffe, naye kasobola nti afunyisanze omusezi, naye kasobola aba nga agudde eri ofumba ku butiko buno. Olina okuba n'obutiko mu nnyumba, buli muntu yenna. Ate enva ddala, buli kimu kyonna buno obutiko ddagala butuyambako ku bigalanga mu mbuto omwo. Tulinawo ekibira kyaffe, mulimu eddagala ery'ebika byonna.
Tunnyonnyola ekimu ku kimu nekyo kikola.
Tweyanziza nnyo ssebo. Tulinawo kino ekiryo, kino ekiryo kuvaako ensujju yiino nga mmere, kino ekiryo kye kivaako ensujju. Ebiryo biri biyamba omuntu okubeera nti nno mubiri talumbiddwa ndwadde kwegamba yeetangira. Tulinawo ekiguju, kinkeberekaawo kino era ekiguju nva, omuntu okubeerawo nga okaaba enva tekisaana. Tulinawo essunsa nawe lituyambako.
Ekiguju nga kifaanana n'ensujju.
Ekiguju bwe kiba kikyali kito lwe tukiyita ekiguju. Ne tukisalaasala ne tugattamu essunsa. Tulina ekinyeebwa wano ekizungu kye tuyita ekizungu, kiri ku mutuba gwaffe guno. Omutuba guliko emigaso mingi, tusimbako emmere ate mwe muva n'olubugo lwaffe, olugoye lwaffe olwasookera ddala. Tulinawo n'emmere yaffe eno kyetutumula. Tweyambisa taaba atuyamba mu kutta ebiwuka, ate nga ne bajjajjaffe beeyambisanga emmindi eno ng'ebirowoozo bigendera, waaba alina ebirowoozo emirimu okugikola, emmindi eno gye yanywanga. Era bw'obanga eddagala eryo nayona lyetuwogeddeko tosobodde genda ng'ono tuligatta mu mmumbwa yaffe eno ne tusira ne tunywa ne tuwa omulwadde ow'olubuto n'omulala. Kaakati wano tulinawo ovakado, tulinawo omwetango guno ku bisiraani n'obeera nti onaabakologa akaneetange ng'erinnya bwe lifaanana ly'eddagala lino. Tulinawo ekigagi kituyamba ku musujja, kikino ekigagi kituyamba ku musujja, n'ennimiro yaffe yiyo weeri. Twadde twogera ku bajjajjaffe engeri gye baakekkerezangamu essubi eryo, nga si kuyiwa amafuta mu byoto nti nno kuba nga bakumisa essubi lino n'emmuli zino nga ze zikuma omuliro, so si kaakati nga guno omulembe gw'okwonoona. Wangi ssebo,
engeri gye tuli nti tuli kukuuma ebintu byaffe bino ebinnansi n'okukuuma enkozesa y'ettaka era mu ngeri ey'obutonde. Sinnaba kulaba bwe mutta biwuka.
Tutta ebiwuka, tulina oluwoko. Oluwoko nno tulugatta ne taaba oyo ne tubeera nga nno tufuuyira ku birime byaffe, ate ng'eddagala lino eryaffe erinnansi terikola overdose.
Obigatta otya ne taaba oluwoko? Omuntu ava wano yandyetaaze okumanya bwa ndukunya luno oluwoko ndukunya, nenkunya n'ebikola bya taaba, nenteekamu amazzi ekisinziira ku bipimo byemba mpimye wano, nenteekamu ne taaba. Sikite bwe kibeera nga kirime nga kyanva, buli kikopo kyenzijje muno kimu ekikopo oba wano liita emu, nteekamu liita 2 ez'amazzi nga zibadde enva. Bwe biba nga kibadde nti nno muti oba kitooke, nteekamu kimu ku kimu amazzi genkamudde muno n'amazzi obuzi gali ge tutabula. Kaaka tulinawo n'ekiri wangi ssebo, ebiwuka ne bifa mu nnimiro.
Ebiwuka ne bifa mu nnimiro. Tulinawo era n'obusa buno.
Tugende ku balala.
Kale ssebo, tulina n'obusa buubwo.
Mpozi nange bampita Mwami Kasala Joseph, nvudde mu kitongole kya Kulika Uganda, naye nange neetaaga okulaga emmeza y'ensigo okuva ku starting okutandikira ddala ku kutandika then okutuuka ku step eno eriwo. Tufuna obusa oba tugenda eno ennimiro tuteekateeka ennimiro, sooka ne tufuna ettaka eddungi obulungi, ne tufuna ebijimusa ebyenjawulo, ne tutabula ettaka mu bijimusa. Naye entabula y'ettaka mu bijimusa tufuna ettaka ebbaafu 3 ebijimusa ng'obusa bw'ente obukadde, ne tubutabula muno ebbaafu emu, ne tutabula mu ttaka, ne tutandika okukola beedi. Kati ettaka eryo
lwaki obusa mukozesa bukadde?
Obusa tukozesa bukadde olw'ensonga buba bwafa dda nga busobola nga buwa buwoze nga tebusobola ku affectinga nsigo oba kugigaana kumera era n'ekirungo kyonna ekyebigimusa kiba kivaamu bulungi nga n'ekirime kiba kimeruka bulungi nnyo ne kikula bulungi.
Kale.
Kati awo bwe tumala okubimikisinga ffe twakolayo oba twayiyayo process nti ensigo tetugiwa direct ku ttaka. Bwe tumala okumikisinga biri ebigimusa byaffe tufuna empapula zino abasinga bazifuna oba ebintu by'abaana bino bwe bamala okusoma babisuula abamu ne babyokya empapula z'amawulire ng'ezo ffe tubifuna ne tubizinga bulungi ne tubisala ne tubizinga. Process eno mpanvu naye nga ebirabwako akadde kano bye bino bye biva mu mpapula z'amawulire zino.
Abamu
bakozesa buveera naye kati process y'obuveera akaveera koonoona ettaka ate oba ogenda kusimbuliza kakutwalira ebiseera bingi okukaggyako n'okasuula eri naye nze wano sisuula ensigo yange bw'emala okumeruka ng'eno bw'eri kati eno yameruka dda nje nkwata bukwasi kyonna kino n'ekiteeka mu ttaka lyange n'ekipapula kyako kivunda ekipapula y'ensigo neeba nga ekula bulungi egenda mu maaso.
Kale tweyanziza. Okay. Mwabadde temunnaba kweteekateeka kati ate ndaba nga nze abaira agenda okudda emabega naye kale. Okay, we shall come back. Okay, this is who? Slow Food Uganda. I think we shall be intervening with where can we stand so that we don't affect the speakers. Okay. So this is Slow Food Uganda. Who is going to take us through the explanations? I think we can get one.
Okay, I will take you through.
Okay. Briefly tell us about what you have here and how does it promote the agroecology and even the nutrition bit of it.
Resilient nutrition starts with managing an agroecological vegetable and food garden. So this is, my name is Eddie Mochibi. I'm from Slow Food Uganda.
Okay.
I'm also a farmer. This is our model garden. We run a project called Slow Food Gardens in communities and schools, talking about agroecology, nutrition, biodiversity conservation, but also promoting sustainable farming practices among young people. So here we have our garden, which is ecologically managed. We use vermicompost. Also, we train students and people in the community to do vermicompost.
How is it got, that vermicompost?
We have worms, which you put in the, like here we used coffee husks. You get worms, you put them there, they start feeding on the organic material where you put them, and then they produce worm casts.
And where do you get those worms?
The worms, you can use the local worms, or you can buy from a farmer who has the more efficient worms. But the local earthworms, which we have in the environment, after rain, you see a lot of earthworms if you have an ecological farm. So you find them and you put them in here. They start feeding on the organic material, and then they produce the worm cast. Worm cast is one of the richest organic soil amendment. It has a lot of nutrients, and it also holds a lot of water in the soil. If you use vermicompost, even if it's dry, your soil will remain with water for a very long period of time.
So you can breed worms?
Yes, they breed. Even if you get 5 worms and you put here, after a short period of time, they breed, they multiply, they grow so fast, they grow so well. And they are actually fertilizer factories, good ecological fertilizer factories. So we don't need the IFDC fertilizer in Teso. We need to promote more and more vermicompost in the communities. Okay. So a slow food garden is ecological. It has variety. It has a lot of indigenous plants, very nutritious. It mixes different colors of plants, but also financial sustainability is key. That's why we have plants like vanilla, We have other plants where you can get money, but also we produce also seedlings from the local and indigenous plants. Then from the garden, we go straight to education.
Okay.
We need to continue educating our people about the values of eating healthy. Eating healthy means eating local, traditional, and indigenous products, and replacing things in our diet that are actually making us commit suicide unintentionally. So here, this is our food education campaign that is based on agroecology, that is based on saying that a healthy and nutritious diet is based on indigenous food biodiversity. So we need to choose local and seasonal. We need to choose organic eggs from free-range birds. We need to choose small seasonal local fish rather than fish that has traveled from China, from France. So this is our education part, because to get resilient nutrition resilience, we need education. To promote agroecology, we need education also of the consumers that this is what they should eat. So these are some of the things we talk about. And we also have a cake from Climbing Yam from Barugu, Chetutumula. So this is also part of the value addition and the transition, which our farmers who are growing 9 varieties of climbing yams in Bukunja, they are trying out to replace wheat-only confectionery and incorporate local products, indigenous products, which we grow in agroforestry systems, in agroecological systems.
So take us briefly how you make that cake in climbing yam.
Climbing yam, we dry climbing yam through the solar dryer. You have to put a little bit of it in water to remove the mucilage.
I don't need to sun dry.
You have to sun dry.
Okay.
You need to sun dry to get the powder,
about
because
sun dryer.
You have to put in the solar dryer. That uses the direct sun, but in a controlled environment.
Okay.
But it's locally made. So you put the the climbing yam chips into the dryer. You get the powder out of it. You can mix with wheat for the consistency.
Okay.
And also you can put local eggs and other ingredients and flavors like vanilla. No, this is bamboo. We have vanilla that side. You can put all the different flavors and it tastes really nice. It has that unique flavor and it uses our locally available indigenous products. Okay. So here is an example of things which we normally neglect, like mukene, like nkeje. Everyone wants now to eat imputa, but there is a big challenge. There is a big competition for that. But again, the whole fish is here. You eat the bones, you eat the scales, you eat everything to give you full nutrition. And also to maintain resilient nutrition, we need to maintain our indigenous seeds. So we have worked with communities to establish seed banks, and we are focusing a lot on products which are highly under attack from the industrial seed system. Grains and pulses, like beans. Beans are being renamed names of research stations, but they remain close to the farmers. These are varieties farmers have preserved for so long. So we work with farmers to collect all the beans and create living seed banks, where farmers bring seeds, we regrow them together with the farmers, and then they can borrow the seeds back, or they can even distribute to other communities which are not originally part of the
I'm seeing they are of different types and different colors. Do they have the same food values, or they're different?
The more diversity in color, the better also, because not all beans should be the same color and they should not be uniform. This is the beauty of diversity. But again, the main nutrition we get from most of the pulses is protein. There is a big debate on protein transition because of the contribution of industrial animal systems to climate change. Many people now want to replace animal protein with pulses, others because of health reasons. So the biggest nutrient we get from here is protein, but there are many other. There are some beans like these ones. The maje is very rich also in iron. So there are iron-rich beans which are actually traditional and indigenous. It's not true that iron-rich beans only come from improved varieties. There are already a lot of varieties which are iron-rich. The ones with dark colors like Manyigam, Limi, like Musai. Musai is directly translated to iron in scientific terms. So this is, biodiversity has given us all this. Nature has given us all this. Okay. So we don't need to throw it away and promote something else.
Is there any value addition in terms of, so that you can be using them in future, or you can be...
For value addition, we are already starting to do work in, like here we have Pindi. We are already starting to work with our communities in Serere, where we have put also processing equipment to make like soya powder, bean powder, and mix with millet. We are going to see the millet project there. Okay. But for now, this is just mostly about seed banks, where farmers are also selling seeds to other communities and making money from these rare varieties.
Seeds are affected with pests. How do you control the pests so that they are...
we use chili mostly. You find in the seed bank there are some boxes where we also mix seeds with black pepper. So we use chili pepper, which is there. We make powder and you put it here plus ash. That also helps to stop the bean weevils and the other insects. But also mixing seeds with black pepper is very, very important, because it also repels the pests. Okay. And also keeping a very clean environment.
Thank you. Is it also yours, this one?
Yes, this is also ours. Okay. We are working along the entire chain, because there are many people in the cities who would like to get good nutrition from indigenous products, who would like also to associate and work with the ecological products. So we have a project on, we call it Earth Markets. These are farmers markets which are directly run by farmers, smallholder farmers. It doesn't matter how small you are, even if you have one urban garden or you have gardens in the pots, you can be part of this market. So we have launched 3 pilot markets, one in Mukono, one in Manafa district in Bobolo Town Council, another one in March Town Council in Lira. So these are the markets which bring things which people no longer see, and also bring real ecological products directly from the farmers. They also bring diversity in nutrition to the urban people who cannot find some of these things in the mainstream food markets. And also it's a place where consumers come and get educated about some of these products.
You can take us through the products.
The products we have, this we call this Embid de Miofu. This banana has yeast behind its skin. It's also very good in terms of iron. It's also very good in terms of reducing sugars. We have mangoes, the kagogwa, the traditional ones. We have katunkuma. We have obukupa. I don't know how other people call them, but
yams.
These are the cocoa yams. They are cocoa yams. We have sweet potato, the old Soroti sweet potato. Now a lot of people are changing the varieties and make patented varieties, but we still have the old varieties. We have oranges from Dokolo. We have avocado, pumpkins, wuju. This wuju is a kind of passion fruit. But it grows really big and very, very juicy inside. We have different varieties of bananas, but also most importantly, instead of soda, it's important to look for banana juice from Chisubi. Okay. There are many different banana varieties which produce very interesting and good juice. So we have Chisubi, we have Gonja, we have Chivuvu. These are all plantains. And we have also Skalindis.
I'm seeing a different type of pineapple. It is having some...
Yes, this is the oldest variety of pineapples in Uganda. It arrived here so many years ago in the 1800s, and it grows under the trees. It grows wild. One stem you can get so many, but not big. So when people were fed on grid, they introduced new varieties which are big, but this is the sweetest and also the most resilient. You can even grow it under the big trees and it will still survive there. Then we also have cassava. You have to diversify the market, but also we have in the farmers market, in the earth market, farmers bring also animals. the local indigenous goats, also to make money. We have also the local chicken from Serere, the indigenous chicken. Also in the market we have climbing aerial potatoes, locally called
Kobe.
Kobe. In Mbale they call it hamakunyu. So different people call them differently. We have mangada, this is tangerine, but this is specifically from Dokolo area. And also we have malewa. The farmers markets bring all these kind of things.
And lastly,
then
we want to go to a
balugu,
next store.
chetumula, and a variety of value-added products. This is coffee from different farmer communities. They are processing coffee, they are branding their coffee and packaging coffee and sell locally. Also we have teso kiere finger millet. This is flour, also enriched with bean powder. And also we have a variety which is enriched with soya powder. So here you have all the information about the product.
Okay, lastly, so that we can go to a next store.
Last but not least, here we have also, instead of Royco, the turmeric provides, if you crush turmeric with garlic, the leafy garlic like we have, the one we have in the garden, you get the same flavor with MSG, the Royco, which is completely a chemical. So here you can use this instead of Royco. You can also for those who are looking for pesticide-free tomatoes, this tomato, the Nakumusana tomato, it can never be sprayed. If you introduce chemicals on this tomato, it dies instantly. So this one, if you want chemical-free tomatoes, resort to the cherry tomatoes. They are indigenous, they are local, and they are very, very healthy and nutritious.
Okay.
So thank you so much. There are quite a lot of other things, but the markets, they are not only for selling, but also educational, and also talk about nutrition, to talk about biodiversity, and also what smallholder farmers are doing to feed the growing population, bringing things to the market and making money.
Okay. Thank you so much, Slow Food. I love the organization. Thank you so much. We want to appreciate PELUM Uganda for coming up with this initiative of promoting our indigenous food. Let us go to another stall to see what our farmers are having today. Are we still in the central region of Uganda? Oh, this is what?
Thank you so much. Welcome to our stall. This is a FMNR network, which is Farmer Managed Natural Regeneration Network, that is hosted by Tree Talk Plus. It's a membership network, and today we are having one of our member, Masaka District Farmers Association. All these products here came from Masaka. Our biggest target is to promote agroforestry through natural regeneration. So we let the stumps regenerate, we let the shoots regenerate, we let the roots regenerate. But the question is, after regeneration, after we have a big tree out there, what do we do with it? You do not tell a farmer, just grow trees for the sake of environment. Yes, they care about the environment, but what about their basic needs like food? Okay. So we ventured into forest foods. We try to revise backwards and see, in forest there used to be some specific foods. All these you're seeing here are foods related to the forest, to trees. You see, all of them almost need support. So when we have a tree out there, we can do a kobe, we can do this, we can do the climbing.
It's called ensusuti. I don't know how it's called in English.
We have the molecular, we have so many things here, but I'll just give a minute to my colleague from Masaka, because basically this is where everything came from.
You should tell us how this cassava became big like this.
I'm Nantongo Oliver from Masaka, DFA. As far as food security is concerned,
yes,
as in promoting indigenous type of foods, we managed to promote cassava value chain. Cassava value chain is from planting good cassava, the indigenous type, because it can grow from anywhere. it supports itself so long as it has been planted on a good soil. After that, we are promoting good quality cassava chips in Tufra. We have their cassava machines. It is an engine cassava slicing machine. It slices cassava, it chips cassava into these smaller chips you are seeing. And we dry it on the taprin for improved good quality. After that, it dries within 1 day.
When
You
it
can
is grinded
see.
like that?
Yeah.
Oh.
And we process cassava flour.
Okay. How does it become big? It's what I want to know.
This one.
Because any farmer would like to get this from his or her garden.
That's why we brought them for the farmer from different regions to also plant these indigenous types. They are the indigenous type from
so it's
Masaka.
the type which grows fat like this.
Yeah, and the Rhino forests.
Yeah.
When you plant it in a good fertile soil, it grows like that, even if it is the indigenous type.
Oh.
Yeah.
And how do you work on the fertilizers in case my land is not fertile? How do I make it fertile?
If your land is not fertile, you can't produce this type. You can't produce the big ones as you were seeing.
Oh.
Yeah.
Good enough. We had an explainer who was telling us how we can get fertilizers organically. Okay, thank you so much. Let us go to another stall. Are we still in Buganda? We are still in Central.
Yes, about.
Okay.
Erinnya nze Musisi James nga tuviiridde Namayimba Epicenter wansi w'ekitongole kya The Hunger Project Uganda. Tutunuulidde emmere eya wano ennansangwa naye nga tutandikira ddala ku nsigo nga tuzirima ne tuzijjanjaba okusobola obutafa okutuuka ku sizoni ebeddako. Ku mmeeza yaffe wano tulinawo mulinga, ensigo za mulinga, tulinawo ensigo za okra, tulinawo green pepper owaffe nansangwa. Ono ne wotamufuuyira ddagala awangala emyaka 5 ng'okyali ku kikolo kimu. Ng'onogookwo. Tulinawo empindi, tulinawo obuyindiyindi, tulinawo ebigaaga, tulinawo katunkuma. Naye ekyenjawulo kye tulina nti ebintu bino byonna bye tulina tubyongerako omutindo mu ngeri emu oba endala okulaba nti oba nga tobiridde nga bikyali fresh osobola okubijja wano n'obirira n'Amerika nga tebinayonooneka.
Ndaba zoyise empindi n'ebigaaga. Ndaba ng'ebifaanagana byawukanirawa.
Empindi ze zino. Buno buyindiyindi.
Okay.
Obuyindiyindi butono ku bigaaga. Ebigaaga bye binene. Bino bye bigaaga.
Okay.
Yesebo.
Then kana akatinike kayindi.
Akatinike kayindiyindi. Wabula mu mbeera eno nga tukola tulina kye tuyita okulaba nga tufuna amakungula amangi ne tulunda enjuki zituyambye nnyo mu kufuna amakungula amangi mu kifo ky'okugula eddagala tufuuyire ebintu bibale. Eddagala erisinga balimi bannaffe kye batamanyi nti litufiiriza bufiiriza, naye bwe tulunda enjuki ziwakisa ebirime byaffe ne tusobola okufuna amakungula amalungi ate n'ebintu ebiramu. Tetukoma mu kuba nti enjuki zituyamba kuwakisa bintu, wabula tufunamu ebintu nga wakisi, ne tufunamu ebintu ng'omubisi, ne tukola kando, ne tukola ebizigo, ne tukola ne sabbuuni.
Wakisi mukolamu biki na biki?
Wakisi tukolamu kando, naddala kando ezo ezibeera makyaki ezennene ezitazikira mangu. Olw'ebirungo ebiteekebwa mu wakisi nga zibiteekebwamu enjuki, tukolamu ebizigo eby'omulembe, tukolamu sabbuuni okulaba nga tubeera mu mbeera eya bulijjo nga tetusaasaanyiza kyamaanyi. Pozzi ne munange kamuwe ayongere ku ebyo bye twongerako omutindo.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm Daniel Lutaya. I'm also a farmer in one of the groups in Namayimba Epicenter.
Okay.
As my colleague has explained, the different seeds, we try to preserve them so that they can generate for the next season, whereby we have a community seed bank. Just like we are a bank where we get money, someone can easily come to the community seed bank and borrow seeds. Then the same way, just like you pay interest in the bank, you also pay interest when you bring the seeds back to the seed bank. You can get 5 kilograms of beans, and after harvesting, you bring 6 kilograms. That means that the bank has made profits, and you have also gained through getting free seeds from the seed bank. So in that way, we are helping farmers that every season they don't need to go to the shop or to the agro dealers to buy seeds. And we also do value addition of different products just to preserve our food. Now, in this way, we prevent wastage of food, because sometimes we find that the food is ready just within the season and we need to consume the whole of it. So the next season, or in between the seasons, you find that certain types of food are not in existence. But we try to preserve our food. Just like this one, this is tokat. That's the brand name, but it is katunkuma, the bitter berries. So if you cannot eat the raw katunkuma just like it is in the other basket, you can eat this one. This is omwafu. Mwafu is a tree, so we try to preserve the mwafu so that someone can easily access it. Even if you go to the supermarket, you can be able to get the mwafu product.
For what purpose, the mwafu?
This one is medicinal. It can help in fighting against the diseases like cough. So for cough, that is among the children and the adults, they are able to take that mwafu.
Okay.
We have the okra seeds and the okra fruits. So from the fruits, we make the seeds, and from the seeds, we are able to make the Damas okra beverage. We have different types of food, just like you see them there. So we are trying to show how the food can be in plenty, like biodiversity, just within our community. We shouldn't only depend on one type of food. So in case you have balugu, it doesn't affect the existence of the potatoes. So you can have a variety of food, and in order for you to balance the diet, you need to get a varieties of different foodstuffs from the garden.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Let us go to another stall and see what people have come to exhibit. This one is what? ESAF Uganda. ESAF Uganda. Okay, you can tell us, you can take us through what you have come to showcase today.
Thank you so much. I'm Masudio Margaret, chairperson ESAF Adjuman District, and a public secretary national ESAF National Board. For us, we are entirely on seed because farmers suffer a lot of challenges in seed. So what we do is to identify the varieties, the crops we want, and we do participatory plant breeding. Based on the objectives we have set, this is the process where the farmers do the participatory plant breeding. Here they are trying to do participatory variety selection, where they have selected the genets. They are planting these various, the different varieties of genets in this same plot at the same time, and based on their objective, they observe which variety suits their objective, meets all the objectives they have. So this is at the end of the season where they are harvesting and they are measuring. Is it high yielding? You see they are doing it participatorily. Okay. So in that they share a lot of experience. This one is on rice, and the others also, this one also on rice. Then there are other seeds which have disappeared in our community. So we look for them and restore. And we do, that is under neglected and underutilized species, where they look for this seed, bring it on board and multiply. But they also set objective, why has it disappeared? Is it because it doesn't eat well, or people ignore it, or they look for the reason why it disappeared? So like this one, this is, we call it jiribi. It is a leafy local variety of vegetable which tastes bitter. So that is why the seed disappeared. So we brought it, we look for it, we grow it, we improve the taste by cooking, by improving how it is being cooked. And all this, we have them in our community seed bank.
What is its food value?
Sorry?
The food value in it.
Yes, it is, first of all, it is food. It has medicinal value, like when you have toothache, you can use the flowers to put on the teeth. When children have stomach problem, you get the roots and you mix it, you pound and mix with water, and you give for the child, and the child gets well. It is food also, and very nutritious. they are always there, available, which means they are climate resilient. So it has vitamins in it. That's why people like it so much. Like this one has been wild in the bush. People always go for it when there is this food scarcity.
It's called what? It is called what?
Eleju. Oh. That is in our local.
We shall go by that one.
Exactly. So this one here is also very nutritious. It has a lot of vitamins in it, and we have domesticated it. We now grow it at home, and we keep them in the community seed bank. As ESAF, we have put community seed banks in Adjuma district, in Apach, in Igulu, in Amoria, where all these seeds are kept. But we don't just collect and put, we go through those processes you are saying. That is where we are domesticating the lost, restoring the lost, and domesticating those ones which are in the bush. And our great parents have been eating, they have never suffered diet-related problems. They have lived long, they have stayed healthy, and they really grow, the children are very strong. So we look for these seeds, we bring them and put them in the community seed banks so that farmers have access, especially women, have access to it. They are the ones managing, they have control over. So we are asking government to allow us certify, have the ownership of these seeds by getting for it. Thank you. I have someone who wants to translate.
It's okay.
Thank you very much. Neyanziza nze Nakijoba Irene nga nvira hano Buganda mu Mukono district. Ndi member wa ESAF Uganda nga munange wanyonyodde. Wano twesibye nnyo ku nsigo kubanga ensigo yereeta emmere mu nsi bwe tubulwa ensigo tewali mmere mu nsi. Ensigo bwebula mu bisolo, ebisolo bigenda kubula. Kyovola wano twesibye nnyo ku nsigo era nga tuzikolera mu groups zaffe nga yetupima nti kino kiddawa, kino kiwooma kitya, era netubeera mu groups zaffe nga tulaba ensigo eyo. Tulina ensigo ez'enjawulo nga bwannyonnyodde era nga tuzigezesa mu nnimiro zaffe, mu groups zaffe, mu bitundu byannyonnyodde.
Lwaki mwasalawo okukola ekyo?
Twasalawo okukola ekyo kubanga ensigo ezimu zitubuzeeko ate nga za mugaso nnyo mu mibiri gyaffe.
Mwakizuula nga kyekizibuzizza?
Twazuula nti waliwo ebyali bizibulamu nga obuwoomi oba n'okukaawa, ne twongeramu ngeri gye tuzifumba ne tulaba nti ekyali kikola obubi kirina okukola obulungi. Endala zaabula kubanga abaali bazirima baali bagenze ng'abalala abaana abato tebabayigiriza kuzitwala mu maaso. Yensonga lwaki mu nsigo zaffe muno nga tuzikola nga tuzinoonya mulimu n'abaana okubasomesa, abaana baffe okubasomesa nti ensigo eno kana akayindiyindi kaali kajjajja wange era nakati nkyakalina, n'omwana wange mugamba nti akayindiyindi kano nkalya emyaka 5 nga nkyakanoga, kijanjalo nkiri ekibisi n'ensigo nenkolaki nentereka nendya ale nengabanako ne bannange. Songa lwaki tuli ku nsigo, ensigo tuzigabana ne bannaffe ate nga tuzirima mu nkola eyaffe ey'ekinnansi nga tukozesa ebigimusa ebirungi ebyaffe ebyakinnansi. Tulina ebijanjalo ebyali byabula ono mutikke. Mutikke means you give him something to go with. If a visitor come, omugenyi bwajja ewaffe e Buganda mutikke abala nnyo naye yali yabula. Jjajja wange yafa 2.5 yatulekera mutikko ono. Nakati tugenda tumuzaazamu nga tugabirako bannaffe tusobole okwaza ensigo okulaba nti emmere eyala mu maka n'ebirala bingi nnyo bye tusobola okwogera ku nsigo eno.
Maybe one thing with these local foods, we have foods which give us protein. We have the beans which you grow it yourself, the same the nuts. We have the vegetables which give you the vitamin. We have the local maize where you get your carbohydrate from. This maize is so good, so resistant to drought. It can the bees cannot even change the color, the appearance. Instead, it will bring the gene from the other maize, it can change this white one to yellow. Okay. So they are very strong. Thank you so much.
Okay, you're welcome. Thank you so much. Let us go on another stall. Which region are we representing here? Central. Oh, this was Juman. Now this is Central again. Okay, who is going to take us through?
Yes,
what do you have here?
What we are having here, first, I'm Chiza Justin. I work with AFAD, that is Agents for Integrated Rural Development. It is an NGO. First here, we are having the very solutions in organic farming. That is, we are having the organic fertilizers and organic pesticides. What you're seeing there is the biosilary fertilizer, a complete one. We have a number of ingredients added in there. We have the biosilary first. We have the vermicompost added there. We get the vermicompost from the earthworms. You feed the earthworms and they give you the very complete manure. So we put it inside there and we join everything. That's where.
No any chemical added.
No any chemical added. Oh. Yes. So here we are having the organic pesticides. You can see. Very effective on our crops. As we believe, you have to first be having the solutions for your gardens to be successful in organic farming. So you have to be with the organic fertilizers first and the...
How do you make this organic pesticide? Take us through the process.
Okay, please.
Okay, let me tell you. So this organic, it is a foliar spray. It is made up of a multitude of ingredients, as you can see it. It's made up of tithonia. It's made up of rabbit urine. It is made up of neem tree, which is essential for the plant growth. So we know it very better that the tithonia and other ingredients, they are source of nitrogen, and other ingredients like potassium. So that fertilizer is rich. It is having the real source of NPK in it. So that's why we are providing solution to the farmers. So sometimes they could ask us that now you are stopping us from using these synthetic chemicals. Which solution is you giving us? So this is the solution. We do what? We gave them. So that is it.
Okay.
So that one, it is a lime sulfur. So as we know it very well, that lime and sulfur is used, it is recommended in organic farming. So we mix the two of them and we boil them. After boiling them, then when it reaches a boiling point, it changes the color to brown. After changing the color to brown, then we do what?
How do you use it?
Yeah?
How do you use it?
So this one, if the fungus has not yet grown up too high, you use 20 mils. 20 mils in 20 liters of water. So if it has overgrown, then you have to use 500 mils in 20 liters
and how
of
about
water.
This one?
So this one you can just use a half liter in 20 liters of water.
Oh.
So that is it.
Okay. How do I use this one when I have a big piece of land?
Actually, that one you can only use a handful It's enough for a whole.
For every plant?
Yeah, for every plant. But when it comes to the perennial crops like coffee, you have to feed it at least twice a year. So meaning that 2.5 kilograms are enough for 6 months.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. You want to explain about the other types I'm seeing here?
Here we are having a number of our local bean seeds that are saved. You can see we are having kanyebwa, we are having masavu, we are having impindi. So you find that we promote bean saving, at least for every family to have a number of variety of seeds to be able to plant in their gardens, to conserve, to have at least a better nutrition.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. Let us go to another exhibitor. I'm seeing someone of my age I think it can be good to explain to us about this.
He's a young man. Okay, I am retired Lieutenant Edward Sebo Fulbega.
Yes, sir.
I am part of AFAD. I was trained by AFAD in adding value on our food products during the bumper harvest. So our motto is turning losses into profits.
Okay.
That's why we came up with processing sweet tropical red wine from these fruits. All fruits can make wine. We make coffee wine, Murondo wine, and others, except
mangoes.
watermelon. But this one is made from apple, bananas, pineapples, hibiscus, which is rich in iron, and the fruits are rich in vitamin A and C. This wine of ours has some medicinal elements. One, if somebody who is diabetic takes it in small sips during bedtime, the sugar level is balanced and he will testify in the morning himself. Two, some people with stomach disorders or indigestion after eating certain food, kind of food, when he takes this one after meals in smaller sips, he will put up, will wake up and tell you that my digestive system stabilized that very night. And the last one I know, which I know, scientifically proved, is that when you don't have appetite for food, this one serves as an appetizer when it's taken before meals. Okay, that's why. And finally, wine doesn't have expiry date known to mankind. The more it stays in stock, the more stronger it becomes.
What
These are, yeah.
What are these ones?
These are macadamias. They are like these, like a ground nuts, like a oyster nuts, but this one is very rich in vitamins. So it is bought in dollars. Even Ugandans can buy.
You can send a microphone to this lady. You can send a microphone to this lady next to you to take us through the greens I'm seeing here. I'm seeing, at least this one I know, rosemary, not so?
Yes, that's
Okay.
rosemary.
Mm.
Yeah, so I'm called Natural Gloria.
Yeah.
I work with Agency for Integrated Rural Development. Yes. We work with farmers and schools. I basically work with schools. Yeah, we've promoted growing of herbs and spices among farmers and in the school communities. And in that case, we've tried to also help them understand the benefits of using the different herbs and spices. So today we have a display of green teas, the different teas you can make using the different herbs and spices that are available, and also to use them the right way. Yeah, traditionally or in our homes, we usually make tea by putting the herbs in the kettle, then you boil. This is not right because the flavor goes off with the steam. So the right way to make a herbal tea is to get the spice you want, put it in a jar or your cup, put hot water, and then cover. The time it takes to infuse will extract all the ingredients you need from this tea, and it will all stay in the water that you eventually drink. So these herbs and spices are good for flavor, they are good for stress, anxiety, they are good for blood purification. So we encourage people to always use them in their families. They are good for relieving stomach upsets in schools. We encourage them to prepare them for children. Yes.
What are their names?
We have rosemary, we have lemon balm, we have peppermint, we have spearmint. This is oregano. This is the African basil. This one is very common. People mistake it for memory loss, but it is not scientifically proven. So we do not encourage people to think of it like that. Then this is the lemongrass. Chisubi chokuchai, yes.
Okay.
So I don't know if you would like to taste any of that teas.
I'll come later, but okay, I will come.
Okay, please.
Okay, thank you so much. And now, how about these trees that I'm seeing? Who can give us and explain about them?
Yes, these are a number of seedlings that still we deal in. We don't stop at training farmers to have a number of spices. Rather, we still train them to raise their own seedlings. Okay. So these are a number of spice seedlings that we are having. we are having the seedlings for agroforestry trees. We have fruit trees like soursop, like pomegranates. So we promote seed saving. We promote for it to be sustainable. Yes,
Okay.
whenever we are working with maybe a number of farmers, a number of schools, we try to train them how to sustain their production.
Okay. Okay, thank you so much. Let us go into another stall. I think now I'm crossing the region. I'm seeing some brothers from Soloti here. Who is going to take us through what you're having here?
Thank you very much and welcome to the Eastern Region stall. I'm George Oruka. I work with the Soroti Catholic Diocese Integrated Development Organization, that is SOCADIDO, also called Caritas Soroti. We have displayed a number of items here which are all agroecological. And when we talk about agroecological, it means we say no to inorganic pesticides or other inorganic herbicides or fertilizers. So whatever you see in front of you here is produced organically. And we have a variety of fruits here.
Yeah.
We have the sweet oranges, and all those varieties are for sweet oranges. We have the passion fruits.
I'm seeing different types of passion fruits.
Yes, yes, different varieties. But
how do you differentiate them?
Yes, but they are all called passion fruits.
Oh.
But when you look at these fruits like pawpaws, the Borassus Ethiopium, that is one of the plants that grows in the eastern region, and you can't find it in many regions. But when you come to the eastern, you'll be able to find the Borassus Ethiopium. And I would like to take you first of all to what guides us in our agroecological farming. You can look at this. This is called aerial yam, and I have two varieties of aerial yam here. This one you can eat, and it is a bodybuilding food, gives you carbohydrates. And also it is one of the it tells you about the weather. It forecasts weather.
Sure.
Traditionally, this is what for us in Teso use for forecasting weather. You can put it in the house. When you put it in the house in the month of April, March, April, it will start germinating. So it will be communicating to you that please go out, start opening land, start planting. The rains are on the way. That is the beauty of this aerial yam, and this is what guides us in our farming in Teso region and Eastern as a whole. And then we have this other variety of the aerial yam. It is a variety which is medicinal. It's medicinal. It treats.
This one is not medicinal?
No, this one is just for bodybuilding. Bodybuilding food, gives you carbohydrates.
Okay.
But this one is medicinal. When you taste it, it's bitter. And it can treat malaria, can treat colds. This is what we use in the Eastern region. And I was talking about fruits. When you look at the fruits we have here, these fruits are very rich in vitamin C. Vitamin C is ascorbic acid. Remember, we had a scourge here in Uganda, and it's not far from now, the COVID-19 scourge. It was really an epidemic which was bringing shocks and bringing sorrow to all of us. But through eating fruits rich in vitamin C, we were able to contain the virus. And then when you look at the pawpaws, the passion fruits, they also give us vitamin A, give us vitamin C, and then vitamin A is good for eyesight. It is retinol. It improves on our eyesight.
Okay.
But we also have tamarins. You can see the tamarind here is you have the fresh one, the dried one, and then we have added value to juice. Okay. These are all good fruits that we need to enjoy. They cleanse our body, they energize us, and they also they are good. They also give us some carbohydrates for bodybuilding as a bodybuilding food.
A lady trying to.
You can see what my colleague is doing. That is our factory in Teso. It is our factory in Teso, and that factory is organic, not like our grind mills of today. You find a grinding mill which they put a number of metals inside, and then when you pour in what you want to process there, you find that in a long run you'll find that those metals are worn out. Where do they go? They get mixing into our foods, and that is very detrimental to our bodies. That is why for us we are saying agroecology. Let's follow agroecological practices. Let's use what is available with us.
That is stone,
and that is stone.
Stone on a stone
is our factory for processing millet, processing cassava.
There is no friction.
No serious friction there. No serious friction. We use the oil for lubricating it. We get the groundnuts, the pounded groundnuts. We spare there, and then to reduce on the friction. So there is no serious wear and tear, and even if it happens, there's no harm to our bodies, other than using those
the metals,
those metallic things.
Okay.
So when you look at this stall here, there are very many. You see, it is very full, very rich, very rich. It implies, it shows you what agroecology is. Agroecology is very rich. It has all the 10 elements. And in those 10 elements, that shows you how diverse. Diversity is one of the elements of agroecology. And this diversity, you see here, look at what we have. Millet, sorghum, maize, green grams. Those are protein giving foods, carbohydrates. We have but above all, you see, you have cashew nuts. This is one of the crop which is getting extinct.
Okay.
Getting extinct. Then we have termites. Termites. A number of our people complain a lot that the termites have infested on my maize. The termites have infested on the sorghum. But when you reduce the population of the termites in the anthill, you will be able to control them. You will not have a problem with pests. We do eat. You see, these are well prepared. And these termites,
eat them like ants?
Yes. These are well prepared. You can taste. There's no harm. And they are rich in iron. I want to assure you. And all the pregnant ladies, I think, should visit this stall. Come to stall number 10. Taste these termites. They are rich in iron. They will help you with your fetus. You can also see we have a number of varieties. Like the Roxo, we have the...
Now what is this type of groundnuts?
I
think it is different. I don't know whether
it looks different, but traditional to Teso.
Oh.
Very, very traditional to Teso. Local we call it Ongwara. And it is one of the striped red and white varieties of the groundnuts, which does well in Teso. And groundnuts is very rich in protein. Very rich in protein. And I would like to assure the public
some value addition here.
Yes, we have. But let me tell you about the nuts, especially talking about the groundnuts.
Okay.
I want to assure the public, all the people who are here, and then the whole world, if at all they are listening to me, I want all of us, I request that we include nuts. We include nuts in our diets. Why do I say so? One, these nuts help us improve our artery health. The health of the arteries. So when you eat nuts, your arteries will be improved. Then it also reduces the inflammation related to heart diseases. And a number of us now are suffering from heart diseases because of consuming inorganic products. But when you include nuts in your diets, you will not suffer that. It will reduce the inflammation. And then the disease risks related to blood clots. The nuts also help us control risk related to blood clots. And then it also helps us lower the risk of high blood pressure. So when you include nuts, so you'll be safe from high blood pressure. when you are safe from high blood pressure, it means you'll be able to reduce your death at the early stage because you'll have a bit of longer life. And you were talking about value addition.
Yeah, we want
yes,
to go
we
to
do.
another stall.
We do a lot of value addition, and this is because of the climate change. And this is what agroecology emphasizes. Agroecology emphasizes. You know, our weather patterns are not reliable the way it used to be before. So when we do value addition, it helps us improve on the shelf life of our products. Look at the nuts. You can see the seed there, fresh, dried, and then now up to pounded. Yes, this one you can even take it to London and you pick it slowly, press to your food and enjoy the nuts. And then when we add value to these nuts, we are also able now to sell it at a higher price. Okay. And the life of the groundnuts has been increased. We have honey.
You're very much organized. Is this because you're connected to the Catholic Church?
Not necessarily, but that is also one of the aspects. You know, working with the Catholics, they are very smart. Yeah. Then secondly, we have had a number of trainings related to agroecology, and then our backgrounds also. And this honey we have here is natural honey. It is never adulterated. So I encourage all of us to come and look at what we have, pick some honey, take it home, enjoy it with your family. It is natural honey. Natural honey, which is one of the, it will give us some carbohydrates that will give us energy to do a lot of work, which we are supposed to.
On another
and then I would have loved to show you a number of what we use for treating ourselves.
Herbal medicine.
Yes, they are also here in plenty. And
this is
we
what?
have, that is the Symbopogon afrocandus.
Oh.
Symbopogon afrocandus.
It's like garlic.
Yes. And then we have...
what is the use of this one?
This major one we are holding, we use it for washing clothes in terms of scarcity of soap.
Oh.
Yes, we use this one for washing our clothes.
How do you use it? You can take us briefly.
You open it, pound, mix it with water, it produces some lather. Then you soak your clothes there and wash.
Okay.
Yes, this is what we use traditionally and organically. And I remember telling you that what we are doing here is all agroecological. Agroecological.
This one is like ginger.
This one is manpower. We have this one for measles.
This one is manpower.
Yeah. This one's for measles. This one hepatitis B. Not treating, we are curing hepatitis B. If you have that problem somewhere there, just come. Don't hide. Slow poison, we help you. Manpower, we help you here. Heart problems, we have. This one, terrible malaria, we have here. Very many of them. In the interest of time, even our traditional food is there.
So colleagues, kindly allow me to take you through what we have prepared as food. I would like all of you to have a look at it, and then later you will join us in the eating, in the tasting of this food. Okay. Let us go and have a look at the food.
Briefly, we shall come back.
I thank you very much.
Yeah. Okay, thank you so much. We still have a number of stalls that we are going to see what people have brought here. But right now I want to go back inside to my colleague Andrew Chamagelo. He's going to take us through another session. But after lunch, we shall be coming and visit other stalls that we have not yet reached. So our dear exhibitors, don't feel bad that we have not come to your stalls. We are still coming. Let us first go through this session which is going on now. Andrew Chamagelo, back to you, sir.
Thank you so much, Anwar and the others on the other side who have been exhibiting. We're going to request that our friends and members kindly reconvene back inside. Let's have this, and the current speeches we're going to have, they're going to be very brief, which will actually inform our next agenda for lunch. But before we actually have it, I want to request that we all reconvene inside. Just briefly, this is going to be a little bit snappy. It won't take a lot more of your time, that then we can have lunch. But before we have lunch, kindly come back inside for a few minutes. We clarify a couple of things and we share information, and then we shall proceed. Kindly come back on the inside and we have this done. Thank you. All right, friends, kindly reconvene. Please, when you come back, sit in front. Let's sit in front. Let's come closer. Let's come closer. Let's come closer. As we are having this getting to get done before we go for lunch. And please, if you're outside, if you meet the clarity in here, you will have missed out quite a lot. But I want to request that we all come back. And our online followers who have been following this conversation, this is a very, very great occasion to have this. But because of time and the limitations plus other competing priorities, we're going to have our guest of honor, who is actually going to be invited by our board chair, Dr. Christopher Cheswa. And then we're going to have a keynote address, and thereafter we shall go for lunch. But kindly I request that reconvene inside and we can have this conversation. So let me invite our board chair, Dr. Christopher Cheswa, to come and invite our chief guest because of competing priorities that he has to leave. We launch our campaign of My Food is African campaign, and thereafter we shall proceed. Dr. Cheswa.
Thank you so much, moderator. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me, before I invite our guest of honor to address us, let me invite the representative of AFSA to seems to be busy. Honorable, please let AFSA, the representative of AFSA come and make. AFSA, are you ready or not? Because we are also going to launch our guest of honor is going to help us launch My Food is African, and AFSA has been generously funding this and driving this campaign. That's why I thought they should have a minute or two to say something, but if not, they seem not to be ready. Sorry that we've had this abrupt change of program. It's because of competing interests. Our guest of honor has other business to attend to that is equally as important as this one we are conducting. Ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming Honorable Ojok Andrew Olanya. Honorable Ojok Andrew Olanya is the MP of Omoro County, but also a member of two parliamentary committees, the Committee on National Economy and the Committee on ICT and National Guidance. Please join me in welcoming Honorable, please. Request you to address this gathering. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doctor. My name is Ojok Andrew Olanya, as introduced earlier. I am the MP for Omoro County, and I'm very glad, humbled, and privileged to be here. Good afternoon. I'm happy to be here because it touches on what actual security is. That our security is the food that we eat. So allow me base my presentation on a quote by Royal Raj, a scientist, who said, he gave a simple equation, and he said, organic agriculture equals seed sovereignty, biological integrity, and food security. Whereas food biotechnology equals only to food security at the cost of seed sovereignty and biological integrity. So he says the choice is on us. And today, you have unanimously agreed that your choice is indigenous foods, and I want to thank you very much. I'm here in two capacities. One, as a member of parliament for a beneficiary constituency. So for all those who are in Omoro or from Omoro, if you're here, are there those from Omoro? Maybe they're outside. But our main campaign at the moment is on the mindset change element. So when you talk about land, when you talk about sustainable use of land, when you talk about all those things, they're very close to my heart. They're dear to my heart. So we need to be able to teach those farmers how to sustainably use the land, because that land is a finite resource. It will get finished. It's there, but you can't expand it. So if I have 1 acre today, it will be 1 acre tomorrow. It will be 1 acre in 100 years. But what is the quality of the soil? So it's important that you teach the farmers to use the land sustainably. Because for the north, for those who are from the north, you know that our wealth is in the land. But we need to convert that wealth from the land to now the pockets as well. So we need to go beyond just teaching them farming practices, but also how to manage the financial aspect of it. So it is my rallying call to all the 66 member organizations under PELUM that when we're there, can we empower the wananchi to be able to sustain their livelihoods? Because when you're sustainable, you can also contribute in a sustainable one. So it's not just teaching them farming practices, but can you sustainably teach them how to make money and sustain their own livelihoods? I've also been informed that you've been having this from Monday up to now. It's a long week. It's been a long week, and I want to congratulate you all for coming this far. I'm sure we've all learned a lot. I look forward to reviewing all the material that have been covered. But personally, as a member of parliament, as a legislator, I want to pledge that you have my undivided support in terms of food security, in terms of seed sovereignty, in terms of original seeds, the indigenous seeds that you're advocating for. You have my full support. I want to thank you very much. Allow me end here, unless there are other questions. I know people are hungry. So allow me end here and just congratulate you, PELUM, and all your organizations that are under umbrella. I want to thank you very much. God bless you.
you so much. Thank you so much, Honorable. We're very humbled that you took time from your busy schedule to actually be here with us. Up next, we should have a presentation coming in from Nairobi. And this is a presentation from Dr. Beatrice Ekesa from the Alliance of Biodiversity International in Seattle. But I need to confirm if she's not. Now that she's not, friends, we are going to go. As we're waiting for Beatrice to actually, I think Beatrice will join us a bit later. Let us have a presentation about the resilient livelihoods from Oxfam, Uganda. This is Mr. Charles Opio. Let's welcome Charles Opio to give us this presentation. And thereafter, we shall go for our lunch, God willing. Charles is from Oxfam, who happened to be one of our key partners with PELUM Uganda, and to make sure that the conversation about indigenous and traditional agroecological conversations stay grounded. Charles Opio. Okay, Honorable, before you leave, we would like you to launch our next campaign called My Food is African campaign. But before you actually launch it, there is a paper to give us an understanding of the campaign. And this is going to be presented by Charles from AFSA. Apologies, it was not Opio. Opio will come later in the panel. But for now, let's have Charles from AFSA to present the need for an African food policy, insights into why My Food is African campaign, and thereafter you'll launch it and then we shall go for lunch. Let's welcome Charles from AFSA to present this.
Our chief guest, my brother, protocol observed, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. My name is Charles Mulozi Olweny. I work as Advocacy and Campaigns Coordinator for Alliance for Food Sovereignty in Africa. And I'm extremely excited that it's my brother who is the chief guest. And I can assure you, after this meeting, I'll follow up on his commitment. I'll have another discussion with him and see how we move forward, some of these commitments. Before I came this morning, I'll keep my presentation very brief. But before I came this morning, yesterday my daughter reminded me to join her during the assembly this morning at Green Hill. So when I passed this morning, I found a big poster like this. A PVC banner with the message, my identity, my culture. And on the writing, there were 3 important pictures that picked a lot of interest and had to walk around. So my identity, my culture. So the first drawing was of Chitenge, the Chiganda, Chitenge, and the Gomesi. And the second drawing was Luombo, Matoke, and a number of traditional food. And the third drawing was a group of traditional dancers in Africa. And these were the kids performing, P1 kids performing. Unfortunately, they could not attend because my presentation initially was scheduled for very early in the morning, around 9:25. So I missed the presentation, but I reflected I was driving coming this side. And that will form the basis of my brief presentation about the conversation about My Food is Africa. So briefly about Alliance, Food Sovereignty in Africa is a base alliance with 36 networks, and we're in 50 countries out of the 55 countries in Africa. And the reason why we call also food sovereignty, because of 3 important aspects. The first one, we strongly believe that Africa as a continent must be self-sufficient in terms of food, self-sufficient. And the second aspect, why we call ourselves food sovereignty or struggle for sovereignty, strongly believe that Africa as a continent, the food system must be local ownership. I was really impressed with the submission from Commissioner from the Minister of Agriculture. A lot of honesty in his submission if you have been listening carefully. Like, there's a lot of commitment among our duty bearers, but they're constrained by the political leaders where my brother Ujok come from. I disagree that our political leaders, they're our bosses. Mr. Ujok, my brother, honorable, we are the voters, we are the bosses of the political leaders. So we need to change the mindset so that the political leaders know that they're accountable to us, not to themselves. So Mr. Commissioner, in your engagement, make sure that your boss know that the voters in Kisoro, in Acholi, in Omoro, they're the bosses because we give them job by voting them. So therefore, they need to act to our interests. The third and important aspect about food sovereignty is about environmental stewardship. The 2 last aspects I'm going to talk about Alliance Food Sovereignty in Africa. The first thing we strongly believe in, that we need to do our own analysis about our food system. IMF, World Bank, USAID cannot impose a system that they don't have on us. We need to define our own system, do our own analysis, and the research that we have should form our policy and program development trajectory. The second last important thing is that we strongly believe that as a continent, we should create one and loud voice, a voice that defends, protects, and safeguards the food system that we strongly believe in. I said I'm going to run so fast because of the time constraint. Let me give some brief context in terms of the food system that we talk about. That the continued impact of the industrial agricultural narratives in Africa has significantly made us to become the net imports of food. And yet the capacity of the production of food in this continent is immense, but has never been harnessed because of the same individual people with interest in terms of our own food system. They hold your hands, you cannot dig, you cannot transform your food system. So we need to fight back, make sure that these narratives, we're able to give our own narrative, not from the industrial agricultural system. The worsening climate emergency, the Commissioner talks strongly about that. Some we have control over and some we don't. So therefore we need to see, if we used to have over 1 point something capacity of forest and we're in less than 0 point something, it's a question that we need to ask our bosses, the politician, as the Commissioner has put it. The changing understanding of the food narratives. Food has changed significantly from what we know food as from the African point of view, compared to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundations, compared to the Monsantos and all these. Their understanding of food is no longer about the food we understand in Africa. Food has become a business. Food has become a transactional issue. So how do we fight back? How do we prepare ourselves as a continent to defend and protect our understanding of the food system that we have? Mr. Commissioner talked about the rapid expanding and unplanned urbanization. Go to my city if you go. It has changed significantly. Urbanization itself is not bad, but must be planned. And we need to put these together. The last aspect of the context that we need to deal with as we discuss, and we meet during the 12th annual Indigenous Food and Seed Fair, is the question of increasing impact of COVID and the question of war. President Museveni has made it clear that when your neighbor is fighting, you should not sleep hungry. So how can Africa protect and safeguard so that when there's war in Europe, we're able to feed ourselves and probably also feed the people who are fighting. It's a question that we all need to reflect. So after we believe that we have four strategic engagement that we have, and we still believe that together with our partners, we are going to change. One, in terms of integrating agroecology in climate actions. I was impressed with the submission during the toll walks. A lot of submissions. That's extremely exciting in terms of how do we integrate agroecology in climate action. How do we strengthen farmers managed seeds? A lot of seed on display. Mr. Commissioner from the Ministry of Agriculture, my brother from Parliament, do we have legal and institutional frameworks that safeguard and promote our own indigenous seed system? Beyond moving to Plant Variety Protection Act, Biosafety and Biotechnology Act, can we protect first what we have before we protect what Monsanto and Bill and Melinda Gates need in Africa, or what Agri is promoting in Africa? The other aspect we are talking about is empowering community voices for land rights and healthy soils. I'm happy in your submission, Honorable, you talk strongly about the question of land rights. Land's become a very important aspect. It's one of the items which is ready for grab. Everywhere, everyone is looking to grab land. Me and Honorable may have capacity to have it, but what about the 75, the 80% of Ugandans who cannot grab or protect what they have? The last and the most important thing, we need to mobilize African citizens to support for sustainable food and nutrition system. The question of sustainability is becoming very core because the increasing impact of climate change, the increasing issues of conflict globally, and all these are part of the struggle for safeguard and protection of what we have. The other details, I'm going to leave it, but briefly in terms of some of the narratives that shape our food system, I want to talk briefly about that. That one of the things that we have seen over time, following the structural adjustment programs in the 1980s to date, we have seen triple burdens of malnutrition in Africa. The triple burden of malnutrition. One, hunger. We talk about obesity in South Africa. You get shocked among the most obese countries in the world. That 3 probably come from Africa. So these are triple burdens of malnutrition that we need to deal with and push back. Then the aspect of environmental unsustainability, the intensive use of dangerous chemicals in our land. And to some extent, my commissioner from the Ministry of Agriculture, they don't have the capacity to detect, monitor, and control some of the use of the chemicals we have in our so there's loss of biodiversity, aspect of water pollution and soil pollution. So all these aspects we need to push back. Then the social inequalities, which is increasing. Statistics and the statisticians will tell you that there's a reduction in poverty. But I can tell you, I come from Acholi. I give you a narrative of Acholi in the last 20 years, changed significantly. We used to go home, come with food. Now when I'm leaving Kampala, I have to go with food. So the whole aspect of social inequality is widening between the people who have and the people they don't have. And the people who don't have, they're becoming more than the people that they have. They have is narrowing the percentage, and they don't have is increasing. So we're going to push back and move some of this system. So there's a lot. Going to talk about brief more slides, then I will hand over. I will talk briefly about the campaign, and then I stop. Another thing I need to talk about is the political economic analysis of the African food-related problems. There are 3 aspects in terms of technology that we're going to talk about. One, in the last 20 years, there is a dominant conversation about food security. And when we talk about food security, what is food security? It's the situations that exist when all people at all times have a physical, social, and economic access to sufficient, safe, and nutritious food that meets their dietary needs and food preferences for active and healthy life. Is these the solutions to our problems in Africa? Does not have a focus on how food is secured. Does not have a recognition in terms of the exploitations of the food system. And the number of challenges that look in terms of food security that I will leave it for you to reflect. The other new terminology that's come in the continent is the aspect of right to food. It's beautiful. My training in human rights. human rights and public policy. It's beautiful to talk about rights, but there are aspects which are left out. Food is a basic human right. Recognizes that all people should be free from hunger, insecurity, and malnutrition. People should secure access. There should be aspect of empowerment. There should be aspect of social transfer. And then there is the aspect of producing food which can be sustainable within the land system. It's a very important question that we have. The new terminology that has just come, and I'm strongly which guide the great work PELUM Uganda is doing, is the question of food sovereignty. And food sovereignty is about policy, not for profit. We look for food not from the profit point of view, but food as for people. And that's what food is all in Africa. The first thing is people first, money come next. The great industrialists, the great people, they started looking at food as a market. But agroecology look at food as people. Profit is next. And that resonates with the theme of my child's school performance today. My identity, my culture, my food. It's about people. It's not about money. Then the aspect of market is not at the center, but people. The last 20 years during the structural adjustment program today, the question of commercialization of agriculture, it is at the center. It's no wonder we are struggling with hunger, with the question of hunger and malnutrition right now, food insecurity. Because we have moved people from food, we have replaced market and money. And that is some of the challenges we are facing right now. So, a number of very important principles that agroecology take into consideration. One, food is for people. We are who we are because of what we eat. The other aspect in terms of the producers and distributors are valued. The current farming and the food system, it values the supermarket. The supermarket doesn't own any land. Does not take into considerations the contributions that the smallholder farmers in Omoro, in Katakwi, is making a contribution to the foods that we're eating in Kampala. Then the question of food is democratically controlled. The question of the democratic process, Honorable Member of Parliament. Like, you don't need to dictate what people need to produce. People have choices to make in terms of what they need to produce. And the other details I'm going to leave it because of the time constraints as well. So, the question about food policy process in Africa, in the last 5 years of research that AFSA was able to do in a number of countries, one, there's a wrong narrative about our food system. People like Commissioner is a very innocent man. He has done a great job for this country, but his hand is being held by someone. A wrong narrative is being created about Africa. Our soil, they are not fertile. Africa cannot feed itself. Our people, there's a lot of wrong narrative that has been created about us, and we have come to accept. A gentleman from stall number 10, he made a very powerful submission, and a number of exhibitors who have shown things outside. The problem is just not about the land is exhausted in Africa, but this is a narrative which has been created, and our people in positions of leadership they have come to accept, and can never push us anywhere. Then there's a strong influence about our food system. I'm happy when Mr. Commissioner said, people in Europe with advanced technology, they've gone through a number of phases, but because of their success, they pick their success and come and dump to us. That's not how development works. Development, you develop from what you have. You keep learning, unlearning, relearning, and make the change you want to see. So all these wrong narratives need to be pushed back, especially with our people in position of leadership, that we need to change. If it was to have time, I was going to give you in terms of the food productions before the colonial period in Africa. Create times and have a look at it. You'll get shocked in terms of how food was produced and the question of food security and the question of nutrition in Africa was. The historical aspect, I'm going to leave it, and also I will share with you in terms of the pre-colonial periods, how the African food systems was run, because I'm being warned on time. Before we were colonized, just have a look at that map, how Africa was connected in terms of trade and the food system that we have. This one before colonialism, before we were being taken hostage by some individuals for their personal interests. We were connected, the entire continent was connected in terms of food productions. And the details, you can be in position to read by yourself. The colonial periods, how things have changed significantly. And that is the map so far. From this map, you could see how Africa was connected. All the green lines, how the African continent was connected in terms of food production and the intertrades among the countries. This was after the colonialism. The old lines inside disappeared. You can only find where there are big ships that dock in Africa. Dakar in Senegal, the different, you could see the whole trading system has been disrupted. Then the people outside, they're the one who can bring what they want and they take away from us. And there is no any way we control our food system and the production system in Africa. So in terms of the 4 external factors that influence agriculture after the independence, I will leave it as well because of the time constraint. I will talk about African food policy in around 5-6 minutes, and then I will stop. Alliance for Food Sovereignty in Africa in 2018 started a conversation with African Union, together with UN, FAO, and World Food Programme, in terms of pushing back on the policy framework that will protect and safeguard the African intellectual property on food and nutrition. So the consultative process started in 2018, went up to 2019. In 2020, we commissioned research study in 20 African countries. We did policy analysis in 20 African countries, including Uganda. And the findings and the recommendation from this research is compelling. Extremely compelling in terms of the gaps we have in our food system. We consolidated this report and we are published. We started the conversations with, these are the countries where the research happened in Africa. The yellow, it formed part of the Greater North Africa. They did their research and dialogues as a sub-regional economic blocks. So the findings were really compelling. So in 2021, we had a discussion with the African Union, especially the Specialized Technical Committee. The Specialized Technical Committee to start the process of developing a food system to replace CADAP. CADAP is making 20 years in the next couple of years from now, 2 or 3 years. But if you look carefully in terms of the impact and the contribution of CADAP in changing our agricultural systems, food system, nutrition in Africa, is quite minimal because it's being imposed on us. There is no system that where each and every smallholder farmers has been part of the conversations of determining the directions, the future of the food system we want. So this process is ongoing. It's a 4-year program. Next year, we'll be trying to make another presentation. This same work also is going in 23 countries in Africa. PELUM Uganda is leading in Uganda, and a number of other countries across the continent that we need to mobilize and build a movement that will cause the change we want to see, where African Union for the first time need to develop a policy, food policy framework that the consultative process start from the low level and move to the level that touch everyone in this continent. So a couple of weeks ago, we launched campaigns to make sure that this campaign, this conversation about development of African food policy succeed. We launched a campaign dubbed My Food is African. And My Food is African, the main objective is to have a conversation to embrace the consumption of healthy and culturally appropriate food in African continent. It has 2 outcomes. The first outcome that each and every African citizens get informed in terms of the food system they eat. And the last and the most important aspect, like African unions come out with a framework of a food policy that protect and safeguard the intellectual food system that we have in African continent beyond people impose on what we need to eat. The last slide, which I want to end with, is regarding that bird. That's a very interesting bird called Ankofa. It's mainly based in Ghana. It has a leg that face where it's going, but the head never look where it's going. It always look back. It always look back. That reaching back to reclaim that which is lost in order to move forward. African continent, since colonial time, pre-colonial time to date, there's aspect about our past deliberate is trying to be distorted. When Mr. Commissioner said the aspect to do with our genes, some are diluted, he used two words, diluted and what? Eroded. Our genes are eroded and being diluted. It's deliberate. Destroy someone's history so you can't connect. These birds give us a very strong conversation about the food system, that as we leave this 12th annual Indigenous Food and Seed Fair, collectively, Mr. Commissioner, together with the Minister of Agriculture, gone are the days that the Minister of Agriculture is for grub for everyone. You need to stand up, tell the politicians you have a constitutional mandate to safeguard and protect the intellectual property of the farming system. The story that our seed bank in Switzerland must live. We start building the history to safeguard the future. God bless you.
Thank you so much, Charles. There was a question online. Someone who wanted to know if they could actually tap into that presentation. The organizers, that's PELUM Uganda, they will have this presentation and they will share it with the concerned parties. Ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, I want to welcome our board chair, Dr. Christopher Cheswa. Let me welcome our chief guest, Honorable, to come. I'm sure Josephine, Mrs. Luimbas, is equally around to come up. And our team, let's have the placard that we can launch My Food is African campaign. And thereafter, we shall proceed in the interest of the competing priorities currently at play. Let's have My Food is African campaign placard. And Doctor, please come as well. Come. Yes, come. So this is the moment we're going to launch this, and just like Charles said, we need to reclaim this. We need to look back and we reclaim the real food that is African, on how we eat, on how we farm, and how we practice. And then you'll sign against it. Okay, so this is the moment. We're going to have this just to make sure that our entire afternoon is covered. Okay, so Honorable is going to officially cut the ribbon, and thereafter you will append your signatures upon it. Yes, of you? Oxfam. Please come up. All right, Afsa. All right, we are going to. Afsa needs to be seen. Perfect. That is it, Charles. All right, let's have the Honorable cut the ribbon, and after we shall append the signature on it. The count of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and 0. The rest of us clap to that. And Honorable, you then append your signature on this placard as a clear sign that this campaign has been launched and it's already up and rolling. All the farmers, the stakeholders, we are part of it. Let me request the board chair to sign against it as well. Charles, you should be on this side. You're going to append your signature. Yes, on it. Yes. Charles need to append the signature on it as well. And the other colleague as well. Okay, you sign on it. Okay. For gender balancing, Josephine, please endorse. We can't fight with people saying, where's the inclusion? Oh, please. You can sign there. The rest of us, let's clap for this moment because it's a great moment. Thank you so much, Honorable. Thank you so much, the team of AFSA. Thank you so much, PELUM Uganda. You can take up your seats. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, online we have Beatrice, who has been waiting patiently. Thank you so much, Honorable. Beatrice has been waiting patiently, rather Bridget. Let us request Bridget to give us this presentation, Bridget Ekesa, and thereafter we shall break for lunch. Beatrice, it's your moment. Beatrice Ekesa, you there?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you so much. Just a minute.
Carry on with the presentation, Beatrice.
Yep. Let me know when you can see my screen.
Beatrice, we can see your screen.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, moderator. Yes, you're right. I've been waiting, but I'm glad we got here. So, ladies and gentlemen, all protocols observed. I'm Dr. Beatrice Ekesa. I am a senior scientist. I work with the Alliance of Biodiversity International. I'm also the country representative for the organization in Uganda. It is an honor for me to be here today to talk about the potential of indigenous and traditional food systems in building resilience in nutrition. So, and when we talk about the traditional food systems and looking at resilience, what really comes to mind are mainly three aspects from where I sit. First of all, my colleagues have talked about climate change. My colleagues have also talked about conflict, and there was also a mention of the COVID-19 situation. So first of all, I would like to really talk about climate change. This is something that has been discussed for a very, very long time. And you find that this came about when farmers started realizing, not even just farmers, but the community started realizing that we have changes in the weather, the rains are coming at different times, the droughts are occurring in places that are not previously experiencing that. So this is something that has led to a lot of unpredictability among the farmers that we work with. And especially when the farmers are having planting material that they are not very, very familiar with, it becomes even a challenge for them to manage the agricultural practices. So we are having a lot of droughts, we are having a lot of flooding, we're having a lot of severe storms. And in other countries and other regions that we might not be sitting in, they're also experiencing heat waves, cold snaps, and frosts. But in addition to just the droughts, the flooding, and the severe storms, we've also experienced some phenomena that are normally not supposed to be very strange, but now they're becoming destructive. I'm talking about like the occurrence of the invasion by the locusts. Locusts are supposed to be part of our environment. But then because of some of these changes, then you find that they come in volumes that are not manageable. They end up destroying what we have as food for us. So this becomes a big issue. We've also had cases of armyworm invasion, which ends up spoiling some of our foods that we have within our plantation. Then people end up having a lot of food insecurity and challenges with regards to what they can eat. So these extreme weathers end up causing extreme poverty. And when there's extreme poverty, then the food systems become very, very vulnerable and our population end up suffering so much. So that is for climate change. Then we have conflicts. And you know, when you talk about conflict, it's not about what could be happening currently in Russia and Ukraine. We'll talk about that. But let us first of all start to think about what is happening within our communities. The moment there are conflicts between communities, there are conflicts between regions, and we've had these cases before. I'm glad that now we are in a place where we are all stable, we are trying to move forward and things are happening positively. But you find that when we have these instances, there is destruction of property, there is displacement of people. And with these cases, you cannot be able to farm in the areas that you normally do your agricultural activity. You cannot be able to go to the shop and trade. You cannot be able to go to your neighbor or to seek some food that you would normally seek without any challenge. So these conflicts end up influencing so much on how we interact within our food systems. Then it leads to scarcity of food commodities. Because if you're not able to move across regions, move across countries, or import or export food commodities, then what you are able to access becomes very, very limited. And the moment the communities are very limited, the commodities are very limited, then you find the prices also go very high. But then no one is going to tell you that now that the prices are going high, we are going to increase your income. That stays static. So you find our communities end up having to come up with mechanisms that end up influencing what they eat, how much they eat, and when they eat. Then you start to look at the foods that you have within our environment that we are not using that could really be helpful in terms of this, filling the gaps, filling the niches that could really be supported by our indigenous foods. It raises the cost of resources. And here now we can even go broader and talk about what is happening in the other countries and that is influencing us. We have the war that is going on. We've experienced as Uganda and East Africa that the prices of some commodities, especially something like fuel, has significantly gone high. And when something like fuel goes up, everything else ends up following the same trend. Something that could easily afford, a budget that could use for a day to get your daily food, now cannot meet that need. So life becomes very, very risky because what we have to eat is dependent on other external factors that you really don't have control over. So conflict is a great contributor if you talk about resilience to food systems. So it is something that we need to think on how we can address so that we are able to still sustain ourselves. And Charles and maybe a previous presenter also talked about food sovereignty. You find if there's a way that we can have within a region most of what we need, and it is sustainably used, then you don't have to be waiting for something to be transported from another country, from another region to reach us. It becomes very, very easy for us to survive, even with some of these difficulties. Then the pandemic. This is something that we never used to think about, but now it's become a big issue. And here I'll mention the COVID-19 that all of us are aware about. And the first thing that comes to mind when you think about COVID-19 is food sovereignty. It has been mentioned before. From COVID-19, we learned that we should be able to access what we need within our environments. That makes us more secure, such that external factors don't end up having very adverse effects on what we have to eat on a daily basis. It also brought out clearly the vulnerability of the global food chains. You are depending on rice from somewhere else, you are depending on milk from someone else, you are depending on fuel from someone else. So when this movement of these commodities gets interfered with, then you find your whole food system gets disrupted. So that became very, very evident within after COVID-19 struck. And so that became a problem for us as a community. Then I don't know why that changed. Yes. So COVID-19 was a big issue that we really need to handle. And then it also brought out the importance of diversified enterprises and income. We need to diversify our food systems so that we have different sources of food that can be able to meet our daily needs. Then that becomes very, very easy for us to survive if something like a pandemic happens again within our settings. Then we have, so why are traditional food systems such a key thing to look at? First of all, if I want to talk about just traditional systems being key, we can take a whole day. But then some key things that are coming up is that we are all aware that we have traditional foods that have very resilient to drought, to hard conditions, and things like that. And I know some of you have walked outside the stalls and you've seen what people have said, you've seen the exhibitions that are there, you've seen products that you might be thinking were extinct, but they're still there. So we have varieties that are very resilient to climate conditions. We have the sorghums, we have the millets, we have the cassavas, we have some nuts, we have some fruits that are very resistant and that can flourish well even when conditions are very, very harsh. Then their nutrition value. One thing that is very, very important when you look at our indigenous food systems is that the varieties that we have, that we consider indigenous, traditional, are very nutritious. And that is why you found when we had things like COVID and people are going back to eating some foods that are more rich in micronutrients, people are eating the indigenous vegetable, people are looking for fruits that are citric, people are looking for some foods that were not being thought of initially. So the nutritional value of our indigenous and traditional foods cannot be undermined. They are very nutritious. We know our indigenous vegetables. We know our indigenous roots and tubers. We know our indigenous beans, and some of them were actually being displayed. I was following the exhibition, the recording of the exhibition, and they were showing the cassavas, a big cassava that someone would think that has been produced or has been bred for higher yield. But the lady was saying this one is an indigenous variety of cassava. It has just been produced in good conditions. So we end up depleting our soils, and then we end up complaining that our traditional foods are not able to be as high yielding as they're supposed to be. Our forefathers used to eat the same things, but they used to get food, they used to get satisfied, and they were the ones that made sure that we are here today. Then the other key thing that we should look at and why indigenous foods and traditional foods are important is the social and cultural values. You know, when you talk about a food like kalo, it's not just the food that you eat, but you see a lot of meaning in that food. That is something that we end up losing if we start leaving out these foods and just integrating other foods without understanding where the story is coming from, the food ways of these particular foods. So our foods have a story behind. Some foods are associated with some milestone in our life. Some foods are associated with some function. There are food that are served in our weddings. There are food that are served in our funerals. There are food that are served in our rites of passage. And they make a great contribution to not only our culture, but also our nutrition and our well-being. So that is why traditional foods are very, very key as we look at sustainable food systems. This is because you don't need to force someone to eat a food that they already have a meaning, that already has a meaning to them. You only need to make sure it is available and the consumption will be very, very smooth. Then they also have a great contribution to the development of high yielding varieties. The commissioner from MAIF mentioned this. Technology is here. Development is there. So some of these varieties that are indigenous can greatly contribute in ensuring that they are the building blocks of the varieties that will let alone be developed, that are maybe more yield, more resistant, and things like that. So they serve an important function even as we develop and we advance in technology. But what do we see? They are mostly at threat. We are losing them and we are not being able to conserve them as we needed. So what would we want done for this? What I came up or I thought through was that, first of all, we need to strengthen the information system that targets indigenous and traditional foods. We need to have documentation such that whatever was being displayed out there, someone can go to a book and they can be able to read and see that, okay, we are having this variety of bean. This variety of bean is grown in, it performs better in this region. It is grown like this. It has this value. It can better be processed in this particular form. We need to have this information well documented so that it can support, so that sustainability on how it is used can be there. So it will talk about documenting the value of the indigenous and traditional foods. How are they valuable nutritionally, medicinally, social, and culturally? Documenting the different processing and consumption methods of these particular foods. And then ensuring that we tap into the elderly that we have within our community. We have some elders that are custodians of information. They have a lot of information on some of these indigenous foods that we have. But then since we don't have the time that we used to have where our children will sit with their grandfathers and receive information and receive knowledge on the foods that they're supposed to consume, we need to make sure that we use the information that is derived from these people. It is recorded, it is documented, so that it can be used by the generation that we have, using the platforms that people are currently using. That way you don't end up losing this. And the moment our population value these indigenous foods, consumption and conservation becomes easy. Then protection and conservation of indigenous and traditional foods. I don't know why the screen is moving, but I hope you're seeing what I'm saying. So the commissioner talked about this a lot, and even talked about the policy that is being drafted and will be in place to ensure there's protection of our agrobiodiversity. He also mentioned we have great species diversity in Uganda, but there's need to make sure that we conserve both through in situ and ex situ techniques. Here I'm talking about gene banks, and when I talk about gene banks, we're talking about national gene banks and regional or global gene banks. I know we have colleagues there from NARO. We have a lot of material that is currently being conserved within the gene banks. We also have community seed banks, and I saw in the exhibition there are a number of exhibitors that are also managing community seed banks. Community seed banks and information. So having them makes sure that we tap into the resources that are within the community. And then the most important thing is making sure that the community seed banks are linked to the national seed banks, so that the material that are at community level are also conserved nationally and regionally. Then thirdly, we have our germplasm collections. This is where we have the in situ conservation. Currently, we have a very big banana germplasm collection in Barara that holds more than 500 banana accessions. There you will see these bananas that are very orange in flesh that we used to see a long time ago, but then they have moved away from our food system such that when you go to the market now, you only find 3 or 4 varieties that you can access. The other aspect that I felt very, very important is agritourism. Promoting selected farmers or even using our NARS so that we have areas where we are growing the diverse fruits, diverse vegetables, diverse cereals. And if someone visits that region, that becomes one of the tourist attractions. That way, there is a lot of appreciation of some of these species. And when they are appreciated, it becomes very, very easy for them to be integrated within the diet system, the food system, and for them to be conserved for even longer. Then the other aspect is protected areas to conserve in situ species. The commissioner talked about this also. So making sure that we just don't let land to be cleared without a lot of thought, a lot of planning on how that is influencing the natural habitat with other organisms that support our food system. So making sure that we are able to protect protected areas, that we are able to, even if a farmer is having land and they have to grow, it doesn't mean you have to cut a tree that is there. Is there a way that you can figure out how to do your farming, but still have some of the trees that are there, or even incorporate some more trees, especially fruit trees, within that farming system? Then lastly, on-farm agrobiodiversity. Making sure that we are not just growing 1 or 2 or 3 varieties within our farming systems. We grow diverse varieties. We keep livestock, we keep small stock, because these different components of the food system feed into each other, and they end up contributing to their yield in the end. So the other thing that I also found very, very important is sustainable utilization of the indigenous and traditional food systems. Here, I'm talking about living interdependently with the environment. If you're going to harvest fruits, there is a way you can harvest the fruits so that the tree is still able to flourish and produce more fruits. If, for instance, you are using the bark of a tree for something, make sure that you harvest that bark of a tree. And our forefathers, our grandfathers knew this very well. So that you get what you need, but then you leave the habitat in a more sustainable way that things can still be able to flourish. The same thing when we are gathering vegetables, when we are hunting our animals, when we are doing our fishing. We have to be careful and use modalities that still ensure that the habitat from which what we are getting comes from is still able to flourish, even after we've got what we need to get. Lastly, is putting farmers at the center of the transformative change. This was mentioned by the previous presenter, Charles. Our farmers are very key people. They hold a lot of information. They hold a lot of resources, and they're always very, very motivated to move the agenda of sustainable food systems forward. It is a matter of us appreciating them, recognizing them, and giving them the space and the platform to do what they can do best. With that, we are going to make sure that our indigenous foods, our traditional foods, are able to participate or to support our food systems and nutrition and make them more resilient and better lead to better livelihoods in future. So that is all I wanted to share with you. Thank you so much.
Beatrice Ekesa from the Alliance of Biodiversity International and SIAD. Thank you so much, Dr. It's humbling to tap into the wealth of knowledge there you have. And to our friends who have been following this conversation online, kindly you will find this presentation with the organizers, that is PELUM Uganda, just to make more sense of the data that has been shared. Friends, I know today we have actually gone beyond the usual time where we have a lunch, but I'm going to request that when we go for lunch, we make it snappy. We're going to use 45 minutes because of time. So while you're having your lunch, let's have it the African way, yeah? And then we can come back and we have everything done. So pass by the registration table, get your lunch coupon, go have your lunch, then we'll reconvene again and we have the rest of the deliberations. Enjoy your lunch.
I am known by the name Socio Grace, and I come from Soroti District.